Our attention shifts west as baseball returns to the heartland this week. The American Association preview and more on this week's episode of the Indie Ball Report podcast. Back again, episode number 270 of the Indie Ball Report podcast, the only show that has a desire to do one episode live on location from Guyana.
Tough one. Had to wear that. I think you deserve that. How you doing, man? A little late night pod action?
Yeah, you know, we're really getting to the vibe of Indie Ball After Dark as of recent.
Sleepy boy season. Uh-oh.
I know. That's really when the best content comes out.
Oh, yeah. And notoriously, we are great when we are absolutely exhausted. This is the time of year where I go from hating or loving the fact that Frontier League and American Association kick off on the same day to hating it. I'm sure give it some time tomorrow and I'll love it again, but I've gotten to like a couple hours sleep the past couple nights trying to catch up rosters and stuff like that. So we're seeing what kind of energy I can corral out of this and then turn right back around and probably do more preseason stuff. So it's going great.
Who needs sleep? Because sleep is the cousin of death.
Bro, I love me some death, man. Keep that to yourself.
So we got baseball to talk about.
Okay.
What an awkward transition.
No, man.
Already off
that stays in. Good God.
Speaking of banging, we're going to have some guys that aren't going to be getting banged out anymore because the Pioneer League has introduced the strike challenge system. That might be one of my worst transitions yet, but we're just going to keep going.
Oh my
because
God.
It only is bad as
who talks about strikeouts like that?
They're punch outs. If you punch something, it makes a banging noise. No,
I just think there's a closer meaning for talking about guys getting banged out, my guy.
So that's
I'll tell you when you're older.
So strike challenge system. We mentioned. I think we talked about this a little bit when we had Andy on a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
but it overall, basically, is a batter, pitcher, or catcher can challenge any ball or strike. Each team's going to get 3 a game. That's 3 unsuccessful challenges, but you can have up to 6 successful ones. This is all from data gathered from the TrackMan system in these Pioneer League ballparks. It's the first year of it, but it is also the first of its kind coming to Indie Ball. So we've seen, the automated balls and strikes before, but we have yet to see the challenge system, which does exist in minor league ball. It just comes to the Indie Ball level now. Any immediate thoughts on that?
Well, my first thought, it said TrackMan.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting to see the TrackMan relationship continue when they also have the baseball cloud connections going. So that's just interesting to see those dynamics. I'm cool with that. I like the challenge system. I don't know if it is going. I perhaps lack some faith that it will work in as exciting a manner as, like I've seen it in AAA and it's great. It's electric. The way they use the scoreboard, the video board for showing it to the crowd is a sick. But I hope the Pioneer League can pull it off. I don't really know what the full plan is.
You see, obviously, most, if not all, of these ballparks do have that capacity in it, so that shouldn't be a problem. Although I do hope Ramundi gets up to standard and can actually operate with this in time, because I imagine
doesn't feel like they're going to need an exception. Never mind, not going to do it. Nope, not doing it.
Because if it is a public park, do you trust the public park to put TrackMan data and tracking information in it?
Neither here nor there. I'm not starting it.
As far as actually talking about the challenge system here, I do think it's a nice introduction here. I will find it interesting to see how often it'll actually be used. I think they have the advantage of having still ballparks that are technologically capable of doing it and actually putting it up on the screen and being fun about it, being cool about it. Like I said, I just hope that the 2 new ballparks are able to handle it. I like the system better than the balls and strike system. It allows the most egregious to actually be addressed while still leaving the human error in the game and also keeping it more familiar for the players and umpires. Using more of a system that, not Morrison, the system that they grew up using, which is umpire makes the strike zone, right? Because we know the challenges that come from the ABS zone. It's not really something a lot of players are used to or are necessarily comfortable with, particularly in the beginning of the year. This, I think, is the best middle ground and one that actually, doesn't slow the game down.
And something that recently came up too with when Angel Hernandez,
league, yeah.
When Angel Hernandez was like really stirring up a mess a few weeks back, someone brought up the point of like, if they had the challenge system, there was the one he ranked someone up on 3 straight outside pitches he called strikes, and someone pointed out that if that first one gets challenged, it's extremely unlikely that the next 2 then get called. So you get the correct call on the first one, and it's extremely unlikely those next 2 are called strikes, either because the pitcher doesn't throw it there or the ump now with like literally I just got corrected on that exact pitch, not going to call it again, or if they do, it's going to be with some audacity at that point, and that's a different conversation. So like it actually has this weird effect of almost being like a corrective measure within the game for an umpire who might be losing the zone.
Yeah, I can see that. It definitely keeps you more in line and brings you back with perspective on it for most, except for like your handful of umps that are, into the ump show.
Ump show. Yeah.
I love the ump show. That's what we show up to the ballpark for.
Well, that's a different conversation. We'll talk ump shows later because there are some who really do like to make it about them, but they're they are very evenly distributed across leagues, which is, again, for a different conversation, not for an episode where we're already going to have to do a whole league preview. So we'll bury that for a slower week.
Exactly. So speaking of burying things, we're going to talk about the MLB Draft League, something that we thought was buried and dead, because who really thinks about the Draft League?
Jesus. I mean, I've been to a Draft League game. It's not on that.
I was going to say, that's some resounding feedback. Now, obviously, on my mistake, Pioneer League managers think about the Draft League. That's where a lot of their players come from. But
honestly, yeah, and I've seen a lot of them float to the frontier this year too. But again, different conversation.
I'll reserve judgment on that. Any case, MLB extended its commitment. If MLB has extended its commitment to the Draft League through 2030, and they will also be adding 2 teams to the league to bring the total to 8 teams. So we've been running a league with 6 teams. What are we doing? What is this, the Can-Am? Come on, get it together, boys. Be better. Although that 2 new team addition will be within the next few seasons. So my guess will be over the next 3 to 5. Additionally, I don't really know what commitment is. My guess would be probably some financial assistance and financial resources, as well as some baseball resources as well. Define that how you will. My assumption is probably like some help with the scouting end of things, maybe a little bit preferential treatment there, maybe some sort of just aid, generally speaking, to marketing and things of that sort. Essentially, just how things have been running are going to continue to run that way for another 6 years. So, yeah, Draft League sticking around.
I've always assumed Draft League teams get a bit of a subsidy from the major leagues, mainly because I haven't heard as much. I've seen about the same success rate by what most organizations would organize. Let me try to phrase that differently. Judging by what most organizations would gauge success by, I've seen about the same amount of success between Draft League teams and the Appalachian League teams.
Okay.
But the Appalachian League teams have been pretty vocal, at least some of them have, about not being real happy where they are.
Yeah. And
I really haven't heard that from the Draft League. Maybe it's because they're a little more under the thumb, but I also think there must be something going on the back end that makes it worth their while. For MLB, I mean, they don't really care about the optics of this Draft League situation. They've accomplished the goal they want to accomplish by cutting minor league teams, though I could see them having some motivation to continue the Draft League because that allows them to continue to present themselves as the good guy in the minor league cuts where they offered something and these other teams chose no, but some teams took us up and look how well they're doing. Like, I do think that's an important part of a narrative, especially there's always ongoing discussion. Will there be litigation on what happened with the minor league cuts? Those are my thoughts there. I suspect there's some sort of, with many motivations, some sort of back funding and back channeled money that helps keep them afloat. I'd be interested. The Appalachian League is the one that I'm fascinated by. I'm also trying to think about what we think the two new locations could be. Do you think they even have anything more than just like a conversation about it going, or do they actually have something in mind?
I think it's just a conversation. I think it's an agreement to find markets. I wouldn't be terribly surprised if you see like some of these other cut markets, perhaps, once they got ditched to somewhere else, could be possibly added back in. That or markets that were left behind when a team relocated. So maybe say like where the old Potomac Nats were. I think that's like Fredericksburg or something like that. Maybe toss something there. Because keep in mind, for the draft league, they don't really care about quality of stadium because it's more MLB adjacent than anything. And you could come in and kind of pretend to be the good guy by like, look, we're keeping baseball in the market. And it also,
I will point.
Yeah. I was going to say it has to be Mid-Atlantic. Yeah, it just has to be the Mid-Atlantic region too.
Yeah, I would say that Potomac location might be unlikely because Fredericksburg does have the new Nats team.
Okay.
And, MLB and the borders there. But, and also Potomac Stadium's pretty beat. I would say there's a chance you see, again, one of the Appalachian League teams jump ship because they have been pretty vocal about not loving their setup. The Colecats fall right within the footprint. I'm trying to think of any markets that would potentially be indie markets that could be affected by this. I don't really see any, right?
No, I just don't think there's any sort of incentive.
Yeah, that's fair. I follow you there.
Yeah. Like financially speaking, I think it probably just better to be on the independent level. You can make more money on it, and you've got to figure that any sort of indie ball market that would have been offered something like that would have either already been offered an opportunity and turned it down, or would be one of the markets that got cut and they chose like, hey, we'll keep professional baseball here. And I mean, I would still deem this to be semi-pro, would you not? I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
So
I think it kind of needs to be by definition with how the rules work on everything. I'm just giving this like 30 more seconds of thought before we move on fully here.
Yeah.
I would, let me see. I would love to see, I feel like some of these Appalachian markets, and I know this is something we've kicked around before. There's just it interests me so much because there's multiple markets that see really good attendance, and they're right within the footprint of both the Atlantic League, somewhat the Frontier, and very much where the American League is looking to expand. And I find it interesting because there's a few that have really good markets attendance-wise, seemingly, and then a few that have nice ballparks while, their attendance might be hit or miss. I'm thinking Pulaski in particular, but I just think it would be interesting. Johnson City, man, needs to be discussed. They have like really good attendance that's been picking up steam, and I would not be surprised if that organization makes a move. And the rumors around Burlington have always been a thing, the Burlington Sock Puppets. I mean, remember the Atlantic League hosted their league meeting there in the offseason a couple of years ago at Burlington's ballpark. That's weird. You have two other teams local, including two very new ballparks, and you don't host it there. You go to Burlington instead. In the same state. I think that's fascinating, and I think it's something to keep an eye on. We haven't discussed that in a while. I'll pocket that from the conversation down the road when we have less to discuss on the episode, but it's going to be a bit of a scramble. I'm interested to see how urgent MLB is to expand in versus the American, who seems to have some urgency to expand, and the Atlantic League that I think they're just holding cards right now, I guess. No, because they need to expand too, because they still have the stupid hiatus going on in Frederick.
Yeah, so I don't know. Plus, keep in mind too, if they're all under that one baseball thing, I got to imagine MLB will have some sort of say on it, and I got to think that whatever MLB favors to have a marketplace will get to eat first.
Yes, I agree, and I'm interested to see. Here's the hypothetical I'm most interested in, because we don't get a lot of the behind the scenes on the financials, either between leagues and teams on the indie ball side or between MLB and basically anybody. Yeah. So why I'm also very fascinated by that area and the potential expansion within the footprint of indie leagues by MLB, whether it's in the Appalachian League or not, is I'm really interested by if there is a team that's open to making a change, it is highly likely that they're entertaining conversations both from indie leagues and from MLB. And I would be very interested in
why you choose one over the other.
That might come from that. Yeah. And seeing how it actually does stack up 1-to-1 if you're facing the option of becoming a summer league team or taking on the challenge of indie ball.
It is interesting.
We talk a lot about how it's cheaper to run one of those draft league teams, but I'm looking too. Like teams are in like 20 home dates in the Appalachian League last year. I know it's not the draft league, but
you're also only paying a roster for half the summer.
And I mean,
and how much do they cost?
We're not even paying that much. And I think, you're still doing housing. I think, I don't know what that dynamic is. Like MLB might be covering that kind of stuff. Like that's, again, we don't know, but
yeah,
it's just interesting to see. I mean, yeah, you're getting about 35 home games if you're like in the draft league. So that's, call it 25-ish less than what you get as an indie ball team. I mean, that is something. If you're confident you can make money on those openings, you're going to want more openings. And it's teams that used to have about 70 a year now down to half that. So that is a hit, even if, a lot is being subsidized.
Be interesting to see how
we're in the weeds. We can move on, but we'll pick that up. I'm sure another episode.
Yeah, that'll come back around sooner than later. But moving on, just a quick Atlantic League update before we get into the preview. A couple of points I have from the past week. Is Staten Island good?
Staten Island might be good, my guy.
That's what I can't tell. They own the Ducks, and I do have some Duck questions coming up. But
quick.
Yeah, it looks like duck hunting season. But I am very curious about how that played out. Also, 2-hour and 23-minute game in the Charleston-Lexington game tonight. But
yeah, dude, that's an 11 a.m. game for you right there. How you doing? Keep it moving.
Gastonia also 2 hours 25 minutes.
I'm wondering how much of that was. I should go back and get the time on that game after 7 innings because it was 1-0 after 7, and then it ended 4-3. So I think how much of that 2-hour and 20-minute game was played the 8th and 9th.
As soon as those kids left, now we can play baseball.
Down. Yeah.
But yeah, thoughts on Staten Island first.
Staten Island first. We picked them early as much improved.
Yeah,
I think that's aging well. I mean, beating Long Island 5 in a row is kind of wild. I think if we looked at this preseason, even after we said they're a much improved team and said we think, we would probably say splitting the first 6 games they have sort of in the early going here would have been a win for them. And now we're looking at 5 or 6 wins out of the first 5 or 6 games. So that's pretty big. Mark's got the boys buzzing right now. They're sitting in second place behind York in that division too. That's big, man. I mean, I don't have a ton to add on that really. I individually, it's funny, I haven't actually been as excited about, the team as a whole, but I think they're finding they're getting some timely results. The offenses look really good. The pitchings look like it's had some moments where it's really been a mess, and they've shown up better against Long Island. And I can't tell if that's because Long Island's kind of a disorganized situation or if it's because Staten Island is good enough to shut them down.
I'm more inclined to believe the prior than the former, just because you look at Staten Island, they struggled against Southern Maryland and they struggled against Charleston. Now, I'm not going to begrudge anyone for struggling against Charleston. They're probably about. They are the hottest team in the league at the moment, and they are proving that they belong in the conversation with the South. But that said, Southern Maryland is not an overly impressive team, and to get shellacked by them, 13-2 is concerning. I mean, they gave 23 runs across 3 games against them, so that is a concerning number.
Counterpoint, a lot of that was 2 blow up innings is what I'd push. That would be my positive spin on that if I wanted to. give a positive spin on that. I don't know. That was, 5 batters faced, 5 runs scored for the starting pitcher in that one.
I mean, like, still though, have a blow up inning in the first inning.
He had a blow up inning in the second inning last start. So, getting to the point in this one.
Yeah, I do kind of wonder about it. I also think it's early to make that prediction, though. As you pointed out in a recent video, we're about a quarter of the way to the first playoff spot.
Yes, that is the interesting twist on everything.
Yeah, so it's kind of one of those situations where you don't panic because you're 12 games in, but you do take some stock because you're like, it gets late early. So yeah. I think more or less, having that hot start builds you in some ground so you can afford to lose some ground later on.
Yeah, I agree 100% on that one. I don't actually have a ton to add there. Just interesting. It's going to be interesting. I guess I'm just trying to get a grasp on what Staten Island's actual schedule looking ahead looks like. And it's, as always, it's a mixed bag, I feel like. But
that's everything in this league, though.
Right. It is so weird. Like, there's so many teams. And every team where I'm like, oh, this is, not a bad time to play this team. Then they smack someone in the mouth. I'm like, all right, never mind. I'll shut up. What I got. And it's weird. It's all weird. It is all weird in summary. But because they're playing Lancaster next, who isn't hot, but they're still Lancaster. And, they can take it to you anytime. And then they got
one game difference between two of them.
But Hagerstown's not they're, oh God, where was my sayings? Yeah, they're 4-8, which sounds bad, but they also can go and get you for a couple. I feel better playing 6 in a row against Hagerstown, by the way. That's good scheduling for Staten Island. You know what I mean? I feel like Hagerstown can put together 3 games where you struggle to score in 2 of them and they might blow up for offensively.
Isn't this also their first real opening weekend though?
Maybe.
Where they're not doing the restricted
I guess so. I'm kind of
so that could be
that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
I just think it's interesting. I would watch that. I think it's a big win for them to have Hagerstown 6 in a row. I just think Hagerstown's as a tough team. They're good, but the talent depth is just a little too shallow right now. I think to pull one off for 6 days in a row, I don't see a world where they take 4 out of 6, and I think I can see one where they take 2 out of 3. So I'd say that's a good thing. Sorry, that's a weird scheduling anomaly I just sort of picked up on. But man,
I've noticed that more and more though across the board. Just to cut in, across a lot of the schedules, I'm noticing more and more of these 6-game, 9-game homestands.
Bro, Staten Island's going to win. We need to win some games here because, all right, we'll back off the schedule pod conversation one sec, but I will give this. You got Lancaster coming and they got their 6 against Hagerstown. From there, it's back against Long Island, who at that point could be pissed. We'll see. York, who's battling them for the division lead right now. And then Lancaster again, and then Gastonia. Gastonia, they do a 3-3 home and home. Mm-hmm. High Point again, home and home. York again, Long Island again, and then finally they get 3 against Lexington, and that's almost end of the half. So the next month for them is a bit of a war.
It should be first half ends on July 3rd or 4th.
Hits its midpoint on July 5th. I assume that's post game July 5th. I think that's the math.
Okay, because July 5 through 7 is Staten Island York.
Yes.
So that could be a very important game, depending. Obviously, got months before that point, but
it'd be a very important game.
Yeah.
Can we discuss how good the South Division is to watch right now? Just on an entertainment level.
That was going to be one of my points there. I was going to go, Charleston's hot and the South is very strong.
Can we also discuss? All right, first, Charleston's the real deal. 2 out of 3 from Gastonia, 2 out of 3 from High Point last week.
Those are big boy wins.
Then losing some guys with some signings. Got Drew Ellis, Jorge Batista,
Carlo Reyes.
And yes, Carlo Reyes. Thank you. That was the third. Is there any better time to have a series with Lexington, then it's the beginning of the week. They did not have a starting pitcher like that. They literally didn't have a starting pitcher who could throw Tuesday night. They have figured it out, got a win there, got a win in game 2. Like, to start the week that down on like top talent and like guys who can throw innings is so difficult in this league. But they drew 6 straight games against Lexington this week and then a day off to like kind of get it all back together before they have to take Gastonia High Point again. Like, huge for them, by the way.
Oh yeah, they got lucky with that draw.
The schedule gods smiled. Like, they were like, you have done good work getting guys signed. We will not punish you. But this, man, you know me, I'm already in on playoff race. I'm like, dude, there's like 50 games left until playoffs lock in for the first half. Like, I'm watching this already. Like, this is a big week because if they continue to beat up on Lexington, if they can manage to take 4, or they've already taken 2, so they split these last 4, they take 4 out of 6. If they can take 3 out of these next 4, then they got 5 out of 6 off of them. That is while Gastonia is out here having to deal with York this weekend. Like, that's a big opportunity to like get some breathing room before having to deal High Point and Gastonia, which again, if they can win those series again, now we're looking at maybe having a 5-game lead in the division.
What exactly is powering the whole Charleston engine here, though? Is this just everybody's working good right now? Is it a couple of hot guys? Is it, just
it's not guys, baby.
Okay, so I mean, like, is that really what you're banking on to keep up?
Honestly, no.
Yeah.
Here, I can pull my most recent notes on this because I actually had a good breakdown on this. Okay, here we go. If you just let me BS for a second. So this has been, honestly, as somebody who is shamelessly a fan of PJ, I'm like very happy for PJ right now. Like, I'm very proud. PJ, the big knock on PJ was like, you'd get your big bats and finding pitching was going to be disaster. And yeah, you'd have some former MLB guys, but they were not the type of former MLB guys you want. And I think last year he went to New Jersey, brought a lot of his normal, usual suspects and powerful hit batters, and realized I'm not going to be able with the Frontier League roster restrictions to do what I've been doing with pitching. I have to change that up. And like we saw last year, it wasn't pretty early. And then they added really consistently some like low key young arms that were really good. And it kept improving throughout the year. And I think that's the same energy we're finding on this pitching staff, like with the guys who have been performing well. I actually think Charleston is not performing up to standard offensively. They're hitting like 250. Phillip Urban's been slumping lately.
Batting average, are we?
Yeah, look at me. How about it?
Look at you coming around to the good stats.
No,
make a believer out of you yet.
I will sort of scroll back here just to double check where I'm at on some of these numbers. Like Phillip Urban's sitting 125, Keon Barnum's sitting 250, Tillman Pugh's hitting 230, but he's starting to get a roll in the right direction. I think he'll be fine. Bruce Estrada had a slow start. Like, they only have 2 guys hitting over 300 right now on a team that's 9-3. So like, they are getting some contributions from their pitching that is extremely valuable, if not slightly unexpected. So I think
Kevin Maton's
that
really
is
the job done here.
I mean, yeah, he's delivering pretty aggressively night after night. I think for them, the stuff that's working on the pitching side could fall apart, but it's a good sign that it hasn't yet. We're through a couple times through the rotation. Things look good. And I think the offensive stuff actually isn't as hot as it could be. And I think that will be something we see play out a little bit more as the year goes here. So I think Charleston could be the real deal, man. This is a better team than I expected, but it does make sense. Like I said it in the team preview, I was like, I don't project them as over 500, but their high-end projections were like right up there with like Gastonia and High Point projections. So we're kind of seeing that right now. And this is definitely performing to like top of their projections on some points, as I said.
Yeah, I mean, it's a boom team. They're at the boom stage right now.
Right.
So I'm just curious to see how long it goes on for, though. That's really my thing.
We're going to learn, I think, this Gastonia and High Point series coming up. We're going to learn something. And I will say, I've been complimenting PJ. I will say, keep an eye out for what I would call a trend of PJ teams that is here. They've now taken 2 in a row from Lexington. They've stepped up in a situation where they were short. They kept their momentum going. They beat a lesser team 2 in a row. I have seen PJ teams before drop 2 out of these next 4, where they had an opportunity to bury the team behind them, and instead they kind of play down to their competition and they can't execute, and they leave a game on the table, and that comes back to get you at the end. So taking 3 out of 4 would be huge for these last 4 games against Lexington before moving on to deal with High Point and Gastonia.
Speaking of Lexington, the teams that's kind of at the bottom, is Lexington really, like, I want to say, are they really that bad? But I mean, they're only 1 game worse than Lee Island. So, like, I would say of the bottom 3 teams in this league, Lexington's by far the worst of them. But are they really like what their record says they are?
I mean, it's not great. I'm just checking to see where they kind of stack up on.
Because they put up runs in their wins. It's just they get body bagged a lot.
That is a fair assessment, I would say. Yeah, they do. They get smoked. And their problem right now is that they're dropping some close games. They had some early close wins, which I think were good for them. But I'm not sure that that's necessarily going to be. Like, they need to get close game. They need to win those close games. When they have a shot, they have a team vulnerable, they have to close it, and they have not been closing the deal over the past week. And I think that's what we're starting to see with this Ram stretch. I'm also a little distracted by, I've just realized how bad Hagerstown's offense is. Good God. What are they? Basically half the run production of every other team in the league right now. Whew, that's tough. Yeah. Lexington, I don't know. I mean, my projections for them weren't good. Honestly, they outperformed them to start the year, which is saying something because they're 3-9. It's just they're trying to do such a difficult task, and I feel like they're only making it more difficult for themselves. I think they probably could be a 5 or 6 win team right now if a couple breaks go differently, and this is a different conversation. Like, if they're 5 and 7, we're like, all right, we're not even talking about them. But they're dropping some close games randomly there. It's good to have Cole Cottom back for them. That's awesome. Cole Cottom.
Cole Cottom from Southie.
That's a big one, man, because they needed some pop in that lineup. It was just missing something. Matt Bosch was very good, but he can't be doing it alone. They were getting dangerously close to the point where you could just work around Cole Cottom, and as long as you don't get burned by Brady Whalen, you're fine.
Which, can I just point out real quick, Brady Whalen is one of my 3 possible That Boy Nice candidates right now.
He's been very good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what's he done?
He's up there with 2 blue crabs right now.
Yeah. I mean, and here's the thing, like, this is the issue for Lexington right now. Over the past week, they have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys in their lineup hitting over 300, and they have not been getting wins. Yeah. Like, you can't be wasting that production if you're a team that's that on the fringe with, whether you're competitive or not. Like, you can't be going 2 and 4 over a stretch where you have 7 dudes in your lineup hitting 300 or better.
I mean, I'm not going to disagree with that. I mean, that's the thing. They're a really good offensive team. It's just, by God, the pitching is just like one pitcher.
I mean, and we saw this coming. We talked about this, and it's so frustrating because it's
right. If you just throw hard,
I know you're getting these velo kids, dude. Like, I get it, but it's not.
But they throw hard, Ryan. That's all you need to do.
It's not even. If you're bringing that mentality, it also doesn't tell me that you're like improving these kids very much or like putting them in a position to succeed. Like, that's another thing that bothers me. Like, we're looking at a team that I just don't see them. They're not doing anything with the pitching staff, and it kills me. I mean, because they do have some guys who are dealing. Like, McKinnon's look good. Loeb's looked really good. Chris Loeb's look really good.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's the one pitcher that's good.
I don't know. McKinnon's all right. Adam Perry's already gone. Tough one, but
great.
He deserved it.
We're a team that really was like velo. You think, oh, well, must have some strikeouts then, right? Because you're blowing past guys. They're 4 from the bottom.
Yeah, and that's it. And I think because, again, coming from the Pioneer League, Greg Zahn, I think he had a simplistic view. I'm not in the conversations, but it feels like
Was he from Pioneer?
Right? Yeah, he was with Billings last year, not as a manager, but he was on the coaching staff.
I may just be blanking on it, but I don't.
I'll do my double check here.
You're right. It is Pioneer, but it was Glacier, not Billings.
Glacier, thank you.
It was a catching/hitting instructor.
Yeah, so he was there. Thank you.
A notable jump there.
Yeah, but the experience I can see from a major league perspective when he got out of the game. Velo has since jumped and become such a focus, even more than it was. That if you're in the game but not on field, you can get it and be like, Velo is king. Okay, got it. And without any of the ebbs and flows and the detail and the further thinking behind it. And then you go into the Pioneer League where if you're a velo guy, you can really put up some numbers, especially in a league where if a ball gets in the area, you're in trouble. So if you're missing bats, your numbers look even better. But and that's his real exposure to indie ball. And then you come to the Atlantic League, which is just a very different level to navigate lineup wise if you're pitching, and just say velo is what's going to get it done. It's just not. It does not apply the same way. I mean, and it might work you through a couple of relief innings. That might work for 3 innings to start the game, first turn through lineup. But velo alone will rarely get you through a second pass in an Atlantic League lineup without them starting to chip away at you a little bit, unless you have something really nice to follow it with, something that either you're not showing first time through a lineup or some sort of breaking ball where they can't just sit off speed easily or sit on the velo. Because again, when he's talking velo, he's not talking 98, he's talking 94. And frankly, if you're a good hitter, if you're a top half of the league hitter in the Atlantic League, 94 is not going to trip you up.
Extra curiosity, you know what team slug off of Lexington?
No, I don't have it in front of me. Why?
I want to see if you can just guess it. It's worse than the league by far, but yeah.
Okay. I mean, is it over 600?
It's under 600. It's over 500 though.
I actually think they've improved it, honestly, because I think they're not in Lexington right now. That's what helps them because balls fly. I don't know. What is it right now?
It is a 526. The next closest is Southern Maryland, who has a 452.
Damn.
In case you're wondering how that translates ERA wise, they are nearly 2 full points, or 2 full runs rather, worse than the next closest, which would be Long Island, surprisingly, at 592.
Yeah, and take,
early season, small sample.
Take earned off the table, but like runs, it's not good. Now, Long Island, I think, as a team, I would say that fits into the small sample conversation.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's take it to Long Island quick.
Less so, perhaps, with Lexington. The last thing I'll point out is, can we discuss the bottom 5, and then we'll move on from this particular piece? The bottom 5 by ERA, team-wise, we'll look at bottom 4. Lexington, okay, unsurprising.
Makes sense, yeah.
Long Island, your defending champs in Lancaster, and Southern Maryland. Oof. That's a wake-up call for the Blue Crabs. They're almost always top 3 in the league in most any pitching stat. So Gastonia, by the way, if your opposing hitters are hitting under 200 against Gastonia right now, that'll work. They'll get there. That team
nice.
That team, the problem is they've given up 17 home runs somehow.
I mean, it's better than Lexington's 25.
No, I agree. It's just that 23% of the hits that Gastonia's given up have been home runs.
But would you take that trade, though? You give up a few hits, but when you give them up, they tend to burn you.
I don't know.
You don't lose often. When you lose big. That's kind of the question here. It's I mean,
I guess it's fine. I mean, I'm looking at opponent OPS as 758 as the middle of the pack. 870 OPS against Lancaster pitching is the worst in the league, by the way. Fascinating. That's tough though. That's tough. That's a tough ballpark, and that's one where we've also discussed that pitching staff is basically an entirely new pitching staff from last year. Only 2 returners, I think.
Yep.
They've dropped 3 in a row again. That's something to talk about, but we'll get there. This is not an Atlantic League episode, but you had one more thing you want to get to. You want to talk Ducks?
Yeah, I want to talk Ducks real quick, and also I'm very happy to see the Lancaster ERA check maybe coming back.
Yeah, right. And oh my God,
thrilled about that. But
yeah.
Yes, the Ducks real quick, just because I know there's people that care about the Ducks, large amount of people that care about the Ducks. It's interesting. Here's the thing, like I'm not overly concerned because all 5 losses came against, or 5 of the 8 came against Staten Island, which is a very weird turn of pace. But also, like you're losing games to Hagerstown here. What are we doing?
Yeah, that is an interesting scenario. I'm not fully able to wrap my head around it. One, I think there's a settled-in period with Lou as the manager.
That's fair.
I think here's my vibe, and this is if you are somebody very familiar with the Long Island clubhouse, sit back and relax, enjoy this, because what I'm going to say is certainly not what's going on, but this is what it feels like outside looking in. They jumped all over Lancaster for those first 3, right?
Yeah.
Since that point, they are 1-8. It feels almost like things were rolling. They were beating up on Lancaster. Things got a little wonky. They gave up 13 runs on that Sunday game.
Yeah.
Lost, went to 3-1. And then like all of a sudden it kind of had that moment of like, hey, like maybe there's a bigger adjustment. Like if you're Lou, you've been bench pitcher forever, you've been part of the organization forever, and you step right in and go 3-0 on Lancaster like that, and then you start to drop one, start to drop another. I could see it going from a moment of being like, dude, natural fit, easy, no worries, like just day after day, we're doing fine, to like, okay, like maybe what I've done previously is not going to exempt me from a lot of the growing, from all the growing pains here. I could see this being a somewhat prolonged struggle.
Okay.
And through the first half, I don't see it being the same in the second half. Like I could see them being about a below 500 team for the first half, and I could see them ripping like 10 games above 500 in the second.
It's just wild how quickly everything can change. Because 2 weeks ago we were talking about they may win both halves and open up a wild card, and now it's like they may finish under 500.
Yeah, it's escalates quickly, man.
Especially and I'm just obviously have to look at the roster and see how everybody's doing, but I'm not even sure how much the second half turnaround is going to come here, because you could lose some guys. Now, obviously, the guys you would think that would be likely to get picked up have been generally underperforming. Mm-hmm. But if you start to turn around, but you're turning around by, getting like your Jackie Bradley Jr.'s, your Frank Schwindel's, those guys rolling, those are the kind of guys that maybe they're not, getting picked up by an MLB org, but you're going to tell me like Taiwan or Mexico isn't going to go and toss a contract out there? Like, I'm just saying.
Maybe. I would put, at this point, they'll be replacing another American player more than likely. So that does limit some of that from Asia. But hear me out. I got 2 things on this one. The schedule is going to be interesting here because there's a lot of big question marks just on who they're playing. Because you got one more game against Staten Island. We'll see how that goes. If you're listening, you already know how it went. And then they got 3 against Hagerstown, who has been struggling, but also they got beat by twice already. And then you've got straight to York. There we go. And then York, which is a nightmare. Southern Maryland, who has shown they can battle. They're not full strength, but they've held their own.
Yeah, that's Southern Maryland too. It's on the road, so.
And then they start a stretch of 4 against Lancaster, 3 against Gastonia, 3 against York, 3 against High Point, 3 against Gastonia, 3 against York. And that takes you into mid-June. So if they don't get this thing straightened in the next week, it's going to be hard to get right in that stretch. That's my negative. My positive is right now, they are getting big contributions from the guys where it was like, hey, it would be nice if they're contributing in the lineup, but it's not what we're building things around. I'm looking at Anthony Antonini, Tyler Dearden, Rexon Wingrove, even Scott Kelly to an extent, hitting about 300, which is, for Scott Kelly, that's hitting
phenomenal.
Schwindel's hitting 250. Jackie Bradley Jr. is hitting 217, even though he's kind of on the upswing. Chase Sisco, but they haven't really needed him because of Antonini. Those guys aren't really making contributions right now. Castillo hitting 260. So they are, if those guys were the ones hitting and they were sitting at the record they have right now, 4-8, I think it's okay. You need to make some roster moves. There needs to be some panic here. I just don't think that's the case offensively. I think those guys are going to wake up and now be okay. Like basically, if you're losing, you're hoping it's because those guys aren't hitting, as opposed to they are hitting and we're still not winning ball games.
Then also the starters aren't performing up to task right now.
Agreed. Yes,
and that makes a bigger question here.
Yeah, that is a mess,
and that's a much tougher one to solve. I mean, we all know pitching is the hardest thing to fix, and more than pitching, starting pitching is really hard to fix.
Yeah. I don't know what to do with that. Mike Montgomery, they're stretching him out right now. He was sort of a late ad. I'm not even sure if he was playing a pitch this year, but he wasn't stretched out. So he's looked good. He's going to start to contribute more innings, which will be big.
Yeah.
But
Chen
he looked fine out at 1, but boy, that is not looked good. Well, I mean, it's only been 2 outings, but amount of contact guys are getting off of him is really surprising. Just not missing bats right now in the way they need him to. And that's going to really get him. I don't know. He's not the type of guy you can get by without.
Yeah. And Woods has just not been. Yeah.
Daniel Crisino, by the way, is looking good. That is an over-performance for him, but that's really good to see. I like Crisino. He's a funny dude. I like to see him do well. He's really struggled in the Atlantic League to start his indie ball career. So I like to see that guy get going. And Mike Montgomery, man, if he can keep that going, that'd be nice. It would be great if they can get him. He's got 5 innings over 2 starts. It'd be awesome if they can get him toward 5 innings per start. That'd be a big win, but I guess you can only ask for what you can ask for.
Yeah. It's an interesting team, though. That's more or less where they're.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was interesting to look at them. So, yeah, I think that's just what does it for Atlantic League talk, though. I think we get right into the preview.
Surely, I'm cool with it.
Yep. Any event, we'll switch it over to the preview. We'll do our standard, this was last year, and these are the basic rules of engagement for the 2024 season. And then we'll get into it. We will do some sort of order for going through it. Probably start off with Chicago and then work our way down because that's how well organized we are. But American Association season starts May 9th, so it does start on Thursday. So 2 days ago it started, and it will end on September the 2nd. So right before Labor Day. Playoffs will start the 4th of September. It's 3-round playoffs. So you have your first round, then your division championship, then your league championship, and the finals. So the Mile Wolf Cup final will start on the 14th of September. So first 2 rounds wrap up in 10 days, and then however long it's going to take to wrap up that final series is how long it will take to wrap. Holy crap, you're like really close to that thing now. Like you're like staring into my soul the way you're doing that. I don't know.
Oh, my bad. I see. Yeah, I just did a screen switch without switching what the camera was. That's funny.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, fuck, that caught me off guard.
Hey, man, don't let distract you. Go with the flow, baby. Feel love.
That's what it's like to have the neighborhood boys peek through your windows. But
a little American association between the two of us. How about that?
Pick your opponent stays the playoff system, and the pitch clock will also remain. Divisions remain the same. Last year, we had Chicago, Milwaukee, Kane County, Cleburne making it from the east, Kansas City, Sioux Falls, and Fargo, Moorhead making it from the west. Kansas City and Milwaukee each won their respective divisions. Kansas City defeated Chicago in 4 games to win the Miles Wolf Cup. That is all you need to know from last year and the ground rules for this year. We can now start talking about the 2024 season in earnest. Why don't we kick it off with Chicago because they're written down first here.
Poorly. I will get ahead of some things on my end as well. I am very tired. And also, I am still not completely done the American Association preview. So I have lots of thoughts on teams in general, but any hard projection numbers I give are going to be a little bit well, not hard numbers. They're going to be a little bit squishy still. So if you hear me say a number on this pod and then later I put out my official projections and it's different, well, there you go. It's either or, either and or. It's going to be tired as hell. And I'm not 100% sold on some of these projections because a couple teams I don't even know the roster is in full, which is fine. I'm fine. Opening day is tomorrow, but it's fine.
Really, he's trying to sabotage the show. That's what's happening here. But, you know.
I'm the worst.
Well, we know, and that's why you're here.
But, let's see here, man. We're talking Chicago, yeah?
Yeah. Jeff Isom comes in first year. Mm-hmm. We won't talk about anything off the field. That's for a different podcast and video. But as far as on the field, there's some guys I like. Krause I like. Voit, despite the trade that brought him here, I do like him as a player. John Baker's an interesting pitcher. There's a couple of bats, Parks and Bell, both former Valley Cats. I do like them. I'm curious to see how they scale up. Crook is also an interesting player to me. And Campagna, I think, was Campagna a Valley Cat or was he just Winnipeg? Because I remember that name. I just don't remember if that was the same guy.
Tri-City and Trois-Rivières back in 2022.
Okay, so they do have a seemingly good Lord. They have a lot of former Valley Cats on this team.
Yeah, it's a move. It's like they're all trying to get away from something.
I wonder what that could be.
Who's to say?
Yeah. Yeah, there's some interesting guys here. I will be honest here. Walking the season, I expected it to be a lot worse than it is. That being said, I don't think they're that bad, but I still don't think they're that good either.
Yeah, I'm not. It's not necessarily getting it done for me. I mean, looking at the starting rotation. I mean,
yeah,
Kenny Serwa's interesting, but he hasn't pitched since Billings in 2022. John Baker's coming from the Frontier. Augie Voigt's had struggles. Stephen Lacey doesn't really project as like a top end type of guy. And then I don't even know who their fifth starter is going to be from there. So like maybe Matt Walker, which is fine. That's not a good start. Not promising. Just having that many question marks in your rotation just right off the bat there. I mean, is that kind of the read you're getting on the pitching as well? I don't want to like.
Yeah, there wasn't too much there that I really liked, particularly on that starting rotation thing. So I would agree with that. I just think overall, the way you can describe both halves of this is there's pieces that are nice, but the general core, there isn't much to it. It's not very deep, and it feels like you could get through them fairly quickly. Yeah,
and there's just no real like key contribute. There's no one who's going to carry the middle of the lineup. Nobody who really causes much fear in the middle of the lineup. Pavin Parks maybe would have the kind of pop to get that done, but he's also a question mark, sort of. So I'm like, I don't see the source of concern if you're an opponent going to deal with Chicago for a weekend. I know it sounds pretty critical. I'm trying not to be that critical, but especially right off the bat. I mean, I don't care. I'm not going to, baby anybody, but I didn't want to dive in and be like, I think they suck. But I mean, the projections are not friendly at this point to Chicago. There are still some holes in the roster that could be filled with productive players. Who knows what exactly they are waiting on, who could be coming to the roster. But I mean, I'm also hesitant because like we've been kind of negative about this organization, and I don't want to just get folded in with that. Like, oh, they just don't like Chicago. That's not what it is at all.
Yeah, and it's just that this team in particular just doesn't look overall that strong.
Yes, exactly. In short, I mean, I had them. My soft, squishy projection number for them is about 46 wins.
It's funny.
What?
I went ahead and said no playoffs, 46.5.
Yeah, I had them missing at 46.3. That's, again, squishy number. Could change, but that's where I'm at right now. Look at us.
I just like to know that my dart throws are pretty accurate.
Every now and again, man. I think it's the blindfold you put on before you do it that really helps you out.
I think it's the 2 shots of whiskey that really helps.
Yeah, that'll do it too.
Yeah. I'm still hung up a little bit on Campagna because I could have sworn after he got picked up by the Rockies that he then he retired or something because he never wound up playing for the Rockies.
I don't know. That's beyond my purview at this point in time. I don't think my brain's gonna have that recall. It'll be interesting. I'm interested in Pavin Parks, by the way. Mixed results at Tri-City, but he did. I mean, he showed some power. Last year he just was flat. I don't know what the deal was with that, but he could be a contributor. He also could really just not see much playing time. Like it's kind of a mixed bag there. But if you look at like even where the infielders are from, like most recently, you don't have any returners to that infield, right? Other than David Mayberry.
Yeah.
And I mean, you got a Pioneer League guy, barely AA guy.
That's the thing that gets me. It's a very inexperienced group.
Pioneer League, more Frontier League, guy from Low A, and then Brantley Bell's legitimate.
Yeah, he's a legit player. Yeah. So that's the thing. I'm just curious. I guess just to circle back to something I said earlier, I'm curious how they scale up.
Right.
I think that's really where my concern lies. In any case, I think Chicago we've pretty much given a decent amount of time to for what we expect them to be. We could shift over to Cleburne, a team that underperformed a bit last year. I think it's fair to say Pete Incaviglia comes in here now, so much different type of manager comes in. I like the team overall. I think Groshans is a very good catcher. Hill Alexander is a great guy for offensive production. Also has a name where you're always like, am I reading this in reverse? But
well said.
Yep. Brian O'Grady's a nice piece there. Shed Long's a nice piece there. Giambrone, I am very curious about. Brett Boswell's a nice little piece there. Cito Culver's a tremendous glove in the middle. Blaze Brothers is just, he's Blaze Brothers. So, I mean, like, how could you not? And he also played fairly well for Cleveland last year.
Blaze it up.
Yeah. Pitching wise, I think they lack a little bit here. Kalick, I think, is a great piece. Mark Washington's a guy. I'm curious to see how he turns out. Tripp and Corbett, I like. And Kyle Johnston is an interesting guy for me. But overall, I do think the offense is what's deep. I think the position players are deep. Pitching is where I'm curious to see how it plays out.
Okay. I think we're going to agree and disagree here a little bit. I have... So Cleburne actually in my early, again, not official projections, blah, 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 put it on every time as the sort of free thing. They're my number 2 team in like the power rankings. I'm projecting them to win like 58, 59 games.
I had 54 and a half.
All right. My big difference maker is I like their pitching a lot more than you. I actually think they're toward the top of the league, if not at the top of the league, but I'm the youth, while seeing 6 rookies in a pitching staff is kind of like it raises eyebrows.
Wait, I only see one rookie.
Oh my god, I'm still in Chicago's. I'm back. Yeah, LS1 because I did have youth. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
they do
have LS1s and
only have the one rookie. Yeah. They have. Let me see. I'm scrolling back over now. Haha. Yeah. But the rookies, then the young guys they do have, I think, are guys that they're not just there because they need some people in the classification and they can handle innings. I think, I honestly think Leinstorg he has potential to be like rookie of the year. Okay. I think I like him a lot. I think he has something, he was with Grand Junction last year. It's tough to tell what the hell's going on out there. Like,
see, that's the thing. That's why I don't really bank on much in the way of Pioneer League pitching. I think of former Pioneer League guys, and maybe only 1 or 2 pitchers on this whole preview that I really like.
But a 4.17 ERA at Grand Junction is pretty impressive, and 113 Ks and about 100 innings. That'll do well. He usually can keep the ball in the zone. My concern, he basically has all the checks of a guy who would make the jump okay, except he was giving up a good number of hits. He was keeping them in the yard, which is huge, but gave up a lot of hits. So this could easily become a thing where he's giving up like a hit and a half per inning, and it's just not tenable. So it could go sideways, but I think there's potential there. That, not to overly focus on him though, I think there are some guys who can execute well. Just looking at rotation pieces like Travis Perry, I think Juan Hillman. I think there's enough there where they're not big impact guys, but I think they can at least not implode as like 4 or 5 starters.
That's fair. That's fair.
And that's really it. I look at teams that have almost a throwaway starter spot, and like you just got to consider that's going to cost them 4 or 5 games over the course of a year. And I don't think Cleveland's really sitting in that position right now. And I think their bullpen depth is actually really good. Like,
yeah, I mean, if you wait till later on when we get to the very end of this and for kind of finals predictions, I'm higher on Cleveland than I think I may be coming across on.
Okay,
but yeah, it's just I'm more or less looking for difference makers, and I don't see as many difference makers on the pitching side as I do the offensive side.
Mm-hmm. I do understand, and maybe that's a bias on my end. Just from a roster instruction side, I like difference. I'm biased typically toward difference makers offensively and guys who will just hold status quo as much as possible pitching wise. Like, I don't need guys putting up crazy numbers. I need guys who are giving up 3 or 4 runs per 6 or 7 innings, and hopefully, I think this offense in particular can score enough runs to make teams regret not taking advantage of the pitching staff more. But in short, I think it's a well put together roster. I think they're going really aggressively. They got guys competing in camp. They were over the salary cap, I think, coming into camp, or they were very close, and they had too many bodies, so they had guys straight up pretty much competing for spots. And I think that's a good line to set straight out the jump. And I just think it is a really good looking offense in particular, but I also think there's good depth of pitching. I think it's a good roster, man.
Overall, it's a really good roster. I do wonder, though, with the salary concerns, does that make it harder to construct around right now?
I don't think so. I think they kind of built it knowing that they were going to come in over and then cut down. So I think if anything else, it gives them a little bit of leverage if they want to move guys. Now, it doesn't help that it sounds like most of the league is aware that they need to get rid of guys. That hurts your leverage, but trying to make some moves to get some younger talent in and fill out the roster that way could work. But I mean, they have the one thing they'll need to watch a little bit is they're close on the line for young guys. So they only have 6. They need 5. It's going to be a headache if they lose a guy to injury or they have a couple guys that really aren't delivering, because you don't just want Kerry Dead weight because of the roster restrictions. So that's a potential headache, but we're talking back end of the roster at that point, not front end.
It's also interesting they only have 2 official outfielders listed.
Right? Yeah.
So you're going to be converting someone. Now, that's not the end of the world, but still, if Hill or Brian get hurt,
yeah,
this could be up the creek quick.
Yeah, I had a couple guys. They have some guys who have played. I'm confused sometimes how guys are classified on these rosters, because sometimes there's guys where I'm just like, but he does barely, like that's like his 3rd position. So I don't necessarily see any of that jumping out, but man, like some of the names I got on the Shed Long, Brian O'Grady, Casito Culver, Trent Giambrone, like damn, they put together a roster.
Yeah, it's very good. But continuing moving, Milwaukee up next. Anthony Barone's returning. This is a team that, like, I always count on them to put together a good pitching staff. I've never really doubted, particularly the bullpen strong. I mean, it continues this year. You got guys like Rodrigo Benoit back. Victor Capian comes in. There's a lot of really solid talent there. I mentioned earlier, I don't really trust a lot of Pioneer League guys. Mark Simon is one of those exceptions, though. I do like him. Juan Echeverria I like. They bring in a lot of just overall talent pitching wise that I do like. And even for guys I'm not totally sold on, I trust Barone's judgment on it, because in his time here, he's put together good pitching staffs. I am concerned, admittedly, batting wise. Jalen Davis, I like. Pruitt, I like. Sermo, I like. That's kind of it, though, batting wise.
Sorry, what did you say about Jose Sermo? Back that up for me.
Sermo, Pruitt, and Davis were like the only 3 guys I really like.
I'm sorry. I thought you were saying that like you weren't really on board. I was like, what else does the guy got to do? All right.
He's one of the few guys he's one of the few guys you can reliably count on there. One pitcher I also did not mention was Greg Minier. He is Arminier. I do like him a lot. He was one of the few bright spots. The one Lincoln stat that wasn't particularly good. I think he was York last year. So he does well in the association. I think he could do really well in the staff and really help anchor that.
Yes, I'm agreeing with you there. I'm just trying to think. Okay, I'm looking at where I have them compared to like where you have them. Honestly, I got them. I got them third in sort of my preliminary power ranking here. Mostly on they're good at most stuff and not real bad at anything. Man, that's kind of enough to get you third in most leagues. The guys who stood out, like you mentioned it, the obvious, like Sermo, Pruitt, Armani Smith could be a good option. Trying to figure out exactly where everybody's going to fit is kind of funny, but I think he's a guy who could like fill out that good start to the outfield that they have. My top guys for them, I liked. All right, there we go. I don't know why in particular names on this team were not sticking in my brain. Yeah, I mean, it was kind of Capion, Garabitos, Benoit, and Echeverria, like as like key bullpen pieces. I think that's having four really solid, and honestly, Riley Weidel too has potential to be a guy, but obviously he hasn't really delivered in a big way to this point. But I think having four good, consistent bullpen guys, meaning you can usually utilize two a night, is a good start. And then getting, I think Sebastian Rodriguez could be the rotation has potential. That's more where I'm at. I look at guys like Shane Behringer. I look at a guy like Sebastian Rodriguez, and I'm like, all right, like I see how this could go very, very well. I go see how that could not go well. Like this could be him giving 100+ innings of like very productive ball, or like 45 innings and like being a 6 starter and giving up, 3 or 4 runs per 4 inning outing. So that's something, and that makes me uncomfortable. That kind of kept me from putting them up there as like a top team. But that's kind of where I'm at on them. The high potential starting rotation. The floor is kind of low and concerning. I think the bullpen is well built, but could use a little more depth probably on the back end or in the front end. I guess it is because the back end is actually what I have more confidence in. Yeah, and then offensively, I think it's a good lineup. It's a fairly typical. It gets a little shallow toward the end, I guess, with Abdiel Lair, but I don't know.
Yeah,
that was the necessary call out Lair, by the way. Lair's fine. He'll hit like 250-ish probably.
Yeah, this is what gets me is that there's not really much bench depth here. I mean, you have probably Brett Rodriguez and then either Meyer or Osberg.
Yeah, that caught my attention too, right? Because they're basically sitting on like 4 outfielders and 4 infielders and 2 catchers. That's like, whoa, that is not how rosters are constructed.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, because even the 2 guys that are listed as inactive right now are both pitchers.
Yeah. So I don't really know the game plan is. There are 24 players active to start, and 14 of them are pitchers. So that's again one way. If you're rolling in the season with 10 batters, I mean that's what I feel like Gastonia was doing at one point last year while they were like midway through like ownership issues.
Yeah, it's very odd. Now, do we think this has anything to do with this ownership group potentially owing some money?
Possible. Where there's smoke, there's fire. I'll be honest. Like at this point, I don't doubt that on any team that has some reports like that.
Yeah, so it's interesting to see. I will say, just to wrap up Milwaukee, because we do want to keep things moving here, I do think they're a playoff team. I have them around 51 wins.
Yeah, I also do. I have them higher than that, but again, preliminary. This might back down a little bit, but I got them still around 58 wins. Ooh, but that's just because, honestly, that comes down to I like the way they match up with certain teams in their division, and I think they'll be able to sort of clean up on some of that. So we've talked about this a little bit last week with projections of there are some where your win total will inflate by a few just because we like if we like one matchup you got against a team that you play 10 times, like that's 2 extra wins right there. So it adds up. If saying 58 does seem like a bit of an endorsement for the number of question marks still there, but I think there's a method to that madness, at least at this point.
King County up next. George Samus back. I like the pitching staff. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but I like the pitching staff. Nick Belzer, CJ Carter, Jack Fox, Weston Meyer, Logan Nissen I like, Ryan Richardson I like. Alex Troop is another interesting name. I also see Jordan Martinson in there as well. There's a lot of really nice guys here. Low key, I'm also hoping because Troop was like both a pitcher and a position player in college. I'm kind of hoping we see that. I doubt it, but I really do want to see it, and I kind of think maybe. But yeah, overall, I really do like most of the pitching staff a lot. As far as the rest, I think it's a little bit, I think it thins itself out a little bit here. There's not too much in the outfield I am overly in love with. Cornelius Randolph, I obviously like a lot. Armand Upshaw, I like a lot as well. And then there's Allen and Cribbs that are always, they're always reliable, always solid. So, yeah, that's over what I'm looking at. I don't love the batting, but I really do like the pitching a lot.
So I'm in agreement with you on the pitching. I have them about probably fourth-ish in the league.
Okay.
But I could also, it's worth saying, like their floor projection-wise is pretty low. It's like 8th or 9th in the league. So things could go sideways if a few guys don't hit, or I guess pitch. I guess you could say.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of the place like every pitching team, though, right? Because if you're just like a so-so batting team and you're like pitching's going to carry us, and then pitching doesn't, it's like, oh, the floor just fell out.
A little bit's that. That's true. I think also you have a situation where you have, like in the bullpen, you're looking at some key guys like Ryan. I'm going Newtov. That seems right. Yeah. And then who's the other that stuck out? Alex Troop in the rotation. Who, if they are both, clicking, this is a much different look. All 4 out of the 5 starters have ERAs that look like they could be hanging around in the 3s potentially. If they're on it, they'll probably be more like the low 4s to mid 4s. But like that's a great start as long as they can cover innings, which is a question mark. A couple of them haven't proven they can do it before, so we'll see. They got a good number of like solid lefties in there too in the rotation, probably 2 coming out of the pen. So. Yeah, point is, I like their pitching, but I do see why their floor is so low. Ryan Richardson, I always forget Ryan Richardson's 5'9". Oh, what? Anywho, offensively, definitely. I mean, I think I have them bottom half of the league offensively.
Yeah.
I just don't necessarily see where it's where they're going to set themselves apart.
It's Allen, Cribbs, and Randolph. I mean, Upshaw's going to contribute a little bit, and Harrison Smith's good for like 3 hot weeks for the season.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like that's pretty much it. Which also Ryan Richardson again. I just want to point out a lot of Pecos in Pacific Association, and then gets like one opportunity in like Lake Erie for a little bit, and then one shot in Long Island that winds up, getting him 2/3 of an inning in Monterey. Does that travel league where he's the only good, or travel team where he's the only good pitcher there, and then King County's like, yeah, we could use a good bullpen arm, and it's been there for 3 years since, throwing like 60 innings a year.
Not bad, man. That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
I have a hard time putting my finger on King County a little bit because so basically they have a top 3rd in the league pitching staff, which has bottom of the 3rd low end. Like if things go real bad, like the floor, and then their hitting side projects as right around the bottom 3rd of the league, but their high end still is like top half. So like this could go a few different ways here. Like it could be that their hitting actually does well and pitching lets them down, and that's how they end up at basically the same record they're projected to. Like it's a weird mix going on here when it comes especially to like who's proven and not proven. Young staff though.
Yeah.
Youngish staff, I guess. I don't know. I feel good about them. Honestly, I think they will make the playoffs. I have them probably in the mid-50s win-wise right now.
Yeah, I had 52.5.
Yeah, all right. I mean, that kind of plays. I'm just pulling on one more.
Yeah, I tend to shoot lower on a lot of these. I don't really think I have too many like standout win totals.
Yeah, I feel you. I mean, that's a smart way to do it, honestly. Yeah, for me, definitely looking at the year that Josh Allen's going to have too. I'm pulling it again. I forget what he did last year stat wise, but Yeah. Where did those numbers land? Yeah. Well, honestly, it wasn't what I thought. That's why the notes stuck out in my head of like he basically had that a really solid year in 2021, and then 2022 was weird. Was he hurt? I think it was.
Something
Whatever,
like that.
semantics. But a bit of a bounce back last year. But like if he gets back to the form he was at in 2021, like this lineup looks a lot different. You can structure it a lot of different ways. And if not, then you're starting to be like, okay, who is not going to rally kill in the middle of this thing, which is not where you want to be.
Yeah. Interesting lineup though, nonetheless there. So moving it along to Gary. Up next is the team that, we've talked a bit about, probably more than a lot of people talk about. And look, there's a lot of people that overlook Gary a lot. But honestly, I'm curious to see how this year shakes out. I feel weirdly optimistic about this team. Maybe it's because they had a couple of hot streaks last year.
Mm-hmm.
But like Mariaga, I like Will Decker. I think we've talked about in the past. He's a solid piece there. LG Castillo's a solid piece. Del Valle showed some potential there. Gio Diaz is probably one of the better players on this team. The pitching concerns me a lot. Like Irwin, I think is going to be a good piece there. And Munez, I like out of the bullpen. But there's not much else. Unless I'm way overlooking somebody, there's just not much else I'm seeing here.
Yes. Okay, so Gary. If we're starting with the positives,
yeah,
in the lineup, Mikey Perez, Gio Diaz, Jesus Mariaga, LG Castillo. With Will Decker, potentially, depending on what kind of season he ends up having, that could start to do something. Yeah. I think much deeper than that, you're maybe asking a little bit too much of Marcos Gonzalez and Guillermo Quintana. I just don't know that they're guys who are going to be consistently delivering. Like, they'll have a game for you, but I think it's just going to be a lot if you're trying to count on them day in, day out. Yeah. Which means you're going to need some contributions from the pitching side. So my full disclosure on this one is I've gotten to the pitching side projections wise. I haven't touched, or I've really gotten my hands to the batting side, but I know the batting side just from familiarity so pretty well. So still, I don't think they're top, honestly, 2/3 of the league offensively, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's extra unfortunate because so far I have them, again, preliminary, but I've got them like 11th out of 12 on the pitching side. Yeah, I just don't see where they're going to get consistent results and consistent results over innings. That's my big one. Because really, if we're looking at guys we trust to throw innings, I only see 3 legit starters, like certified starters. And
I guess 2 of them.
Go for it.
Irwin.
Yep.
Tideman.
Is he on the team still?
I still have Ty Tideman listed.
Oh, Tideman. That's not what I heard. Sorry about that. So Tideman's a question mark. I'm, let me double check what he's been up to. But I don't have him as a locked in starter, man. But he might need to be. You know what I mean?
That's the thing I'm looking at here. I think ideal world, you wouldn't use him. He
didn't start last year. He started 3 times season before.
In Frisco, he really isn't a starter, but the thing is he can throw some innings, though.
Yes, he can. He can also get hurt, so let's be careful. I believe he had a couple injuries come up. But that could be off on that one. I don't have the report in front of me on that, so I didn't pull that doc up. That's on Ryan. I could be off. Ooh, I've got the 3 certified starters I got in my head are Chris Irwin, Daniel Olivero, and Peyton Long, and then probably put in Ryan Munoz in that category. But between that,
I don't really think Ryan Munoz is a good option as a starter there. I mean, that's could he do it? Yeah. But I feel like that's the conversation around him. It's
that's the thing. He started in New York. He got 11 starts last season. It more depends on if he wants to.
Yeah. He's at his best when he's not starting.
Fair enough. Now I will say maybe he wants to start. Starters are seen by a lot of organizations as more desirable. I don't necessarily know if that's correct. I don't know if it is more. I don't know if you're more likely to be signed as a reliever, but I've run it or as a starter, but I've found that more often. I guess the idea is usually you can make a starter a reliever. You can always make a reliever a starter. So if you're getting a guy from an indie league team, then maybe
that's a guy that could be, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's exceptions to the rule. I mean, a guy like Topa, I think, was never really a starter, but yeah.
Yeah. I think Carlos Sanabria and Josh Smith are good bullpen options. I also like Yohan Valdez. Potentially he could make something happen. Love to see him post more consistent numbers, but that's my thing. When you're pushing back on Ryan Munoz, I'm pushing back on Ty Tiedemann. That means we have 3 starters that we're confident that they have going into this year.
Yeah. I mean, a guy like Nate Alexander may be able to too. As like a 5.
I don't really project any of them to throw over 90 innings. In fact, I don't even project Chris Irwin to throw more than like 60. So, I mean, where are innings coming from? That's where I think they have a good core top end group pitching wise, like one that can compete. My problem is I don't think that's a core that's built to cover enough innings to make it okay that there's so many soft, squishy parts of the rest of this pitching staff. And that's where you end up with number 11 pitching staff. Out of 12.
Is it bad that like a 2-half system would help this team?
Oh, you're dead right. Yeah. Yeah. Because get hot a little bit, you can
exactly get hot.
If the start to the year is rough, you get a second shot again, build for that.
Exactly. Like just go chips in on that first half when you'll have the innings and then just kind of like piece it together in the second half so that way you're not burning useful guys.
Yeah, or get bounced early in the first half and start saving for the second.
Bingo.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I think I'm always comfortable talking longer about Gary because I think, well, one, we are seen as anti-Gary, which is not actually how I feel. But if I am then following that with it, I think they're going to be at the bottom of the league. I do have them 12th, by the way, in my power ranking to start here. I think it deserves a justification because there are good things going on at Gary. I just don't think there's enough right now.
Exactly. Like I'm always curious to see how you build that team.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's something about it that makes it tough to build.
Yep.
I'm not going to say what it is, but there is something. Because maybe I'm wrong.
Bro, there's nothing wrong with saying it. It's the town. Yeah. And whether it's the town or the reputation of the town, that's fine. Like, bro, like I don't know why we tiptoe around saying it. It's hard to recruit to Winnipeg too, bro, because people don't want to go to Winnipeg. Like, unless you're Canadian, you're going to get the top Canadian talent score. But like, unless you're real in the culture wall, you're probably not super excited to go to Winnipeg a lot. So it is what it is. Every
it's a good atmosphere.
Challenge for recruiting. It's just going to be. I'm not trashing the Winnipeg atmosphere. I do agree. I've heard it's great there. All the Canadian teams seem to have a bit of a vibe to them, but I wasn't trying to be Winnipeg catching a stray. It's just like look at a team that we're more confident in, like Winnipeg. Like they also are fighting battles. I don't know that there is this ownership is a new group. I don't know that they necessarily have the buy-in or strategy of attack to make the most of it. I think Gary kind of has to moneyball this a little bit until they've proven what they can do and become and honestly, it's going to be, if you want to talk the shortcut, I think for Gary would be creating a really good environment for players and families with off-field housing, like with, wherever they're putting guys, put extra money into that, secure that, then you don't have to go above and beyond. So constantly to try to get any single player in because you have a good reputation, then you can focus, obviously off the field stuff you want to focus on as well. But like then that should handle a lot of your on the field and start getting around it where, honestly, like Charleston is not a glamorous place. We don't talk about that very much. Like Charleston's the smallest of the major indie ball cities. It has a tough reputation. It is not always the safest, but they draw well. And by the way, last I've checked, they had pretty good housing going on there too. And that's helped. So.
Just disappointing because Gary's been a market for so long. It has so much to do it. It's just they keep falling. It's probably, by the way, I had them at 47.5 wins.
I had them at 46.
Okay, so we're pretty much on the same page.
Yeah, I'm real compressed on the low end. That's why I know I can eyeball these numbers. I know they're going to change by the time I make them like fully public, but it just doesn't make sense that they're low. My lowest team is 46 wins. It's just not how math works.
Yeah. Lake Country up next. Big off season for them. I like Josh Altman a lot because how could you not? I
Right.
like Hernandez. I like Chula.
I lied. I'm back. I had 40.5 wins for Gary. Sorry. Took me a second. I'm back. Okay, where were we? Continue.
I like that bomb in the middle of me just like saying like, oh yeah, I like the batting for Lake Country. You're just like, yeah, hold up, Gary. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I was like, I thought I
We
fixed those
moonlight
numbers a little
you. Yeah, it's like Moonlight the Oscar. Like, oh, I'm sorry, we read the wrong card.
bit. All right, Lake Country. Sorry, you're back.
Yes, Josh Altman, who's the perennial MVP candidate. Ryan Hernandez, solid player. Merrick Tulip, I like a lot too. Tyberry, I like a lot as well. I just don't really see a whole lot pitching wise, unless like Alexei Rivero. I like a lot. I think he's solid. Mullenbach, I think is interesting. I kind of start running out of names quickly though.
Pretty quickly, yeah, right?
Yeah, it dries up real quick.
Yeah.
Which we do know it is a bit tougher to pitch in that park, though.
Take me to the lakes where all the pitchers go to die. The good things, Yermin Lara, Matt Mullenbach. I also like Brian Bonnell as a possible breakout.
Yeah.
We're not Brody Rodning, but also Sterling Sharp. That's kind of where my optimism streak is with the pitching side. I do have them 9th in like the early projections here, pitching wise. It could be for sure. The fact that I moved on so quickly means there's at least something to harp on. What do we got?
Look at this one dude here, Thomas Jones. Somehow he managed to be born in the year 2097.
Good for him, man.
I know, he's just a trendsetter.
Benjamin Button in this hoe.
Not really. I'm going to assume it meant to be 1997, but look at him. The time is an illusion.
Yeah, I mean, rapping. Yeah, I don't have a ton to add on that, if I'm honest. My concern definitely lies in that lack of depth. I think I have 1, 2. Oh, shoot. I mean, I don't know. Alexis Rivero is a good option as well.
Yeah, he's one of the 2 guys not named. Yeah.
But I mean, they have what I would consider, if I had a team coming in, I think they're bringing 4, call it 5 guys into this party.
Okay.
Who I would see as placeholders, and I do not believe they're coming in as placeholders. Like I think I think the plan is to use them like full. Nah, I call it 4. I just think I don't need to name names necessarily. I don't like name names on hard drags like that, but that's kind of where I'm at on the pitching side with them. So high upside with some of these guys, but also the low is pretty low. Offensively, I got them like top 3 or 4 in the league. Honestly.
Yeah, they do have a lot.
They're gonna have to wing it, boys. It's a swingers party on the lake. Bring the dog. What? Why? I need to sleep. The obvious Altman show up, which we don't discuss that enough as onomatopoeia. Tom Jones, not that Tom Jones, Justin Connell, Justin Levy, the Justins, Bobby, Blake Tyberry. I mean, we're down in the bottom half of this lineup. And we're still bringing up like Ray Zuberer, who like honestly,
I don't know what to make of him, if he's going to make that transition from Florence good or not, but I'm curious to see it.
I'm a little unsure also, but I was about to like confidently endorse him, and I'm like, hold on, like we'll see. Yeah, what did my numbers have him at? I do think I have his numbers in front of me. I had him at, I think nope, that's not it. Oh, there we go. The 3rd. Don't forget that 3, baby. I had him hitting about 270 this year. I think he makes the transition okay.
Yeah, not bad.
So she has an LS1. That's a really good signing. Not enough to talk about the young talent there.
Honestly, Merrick Tulip as a rookie is going to be good.
Yes.
Bang for your buck.
My nitpick thing on their offense is I'm not overly in on the collective of Robbie Tenorowicz, who's I think new. They just signed him, I think. Josh Morgan and Davey Grulon, was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're all eating up veteran spots.
We don't need that many veteran catchers.
No, you don't. I like having one. I like having one for how young the pitching staff is.
They're just going to have a veteran
guys.
catcher behind the plate.
Agreed. You know, they don't even have that young of a pitching staff, I'm being honest with you. It just stuck out. A couple of the guys I pay attention to are younger, but I would.
They're mostly 27 and older.
Yeah. So that's, you know, I don't know. I don't know what they're spending on them. That might be a spot to reconsider budgeting. But also, it's a weird use of veteran slots. But again, I don't know where else you'd use them because your young guys look promising. I mean, you got LS3s, LS4s taking up most of the rest of the lineup, and it looks pretty good. So maybe that's just it. Maybe it is a good use of it. Maybe a good use of veteran spots is you have a good young team. They're guys who maybe won't hang around for a couple more years because you're going to have those young guys age up. But like they're kind of glue guys, clubhouse guys. I don't really know them personally, so maybe that's a thought. So who am I? But that's something to watch. Maybe that's just a placeholder for future moves too. But that's in the weeds for this conversation.
But could you now find a veteran that's at a different position that's a glue guy?
No, backup catcher though is that glue guy spot. I don't know. I counter that.
I'm just saying, two veteran catchers.
So where I'd push is I think that's fine. I think also if you're going to get a guy who maybe isn't the biggest threat offensively, who could be a potential glue guy, which we're not even sure they are glue guys. We're just saying maybe that's the vibe. Catcher's not bad because you can give away some offensive strength with a catcher, and you're also not going to pinch hit with them much. So it's not like he's going to be costing you when you really need one off the bench. I don't hate 5'8"
catcher.
Yeah.
I'm looking for the 5'8" catcher catching the 6'9" Brady Puckett.
Yeah, dude, that's a vibe.
It's a whole foot difference.
So one way to start the swingers party. That's all right. That's what I got. I got them right around right around 500, maybe 51 wins right now.
I am at 49.5.
And I don't really even have them sneaking in. Honestly, I have a few games separation between them and the cut line, but
yeah,
room to grow. Like this is definitely a positive step, by the way.
Yeah, like
that.
Speaking of wrapping up the East, who are the two teams you have not making the playoffs in the East?
Chicago and Gary.
Same. Okay, good. We're on the same page.
Yeah, I got Cleburne, Milwaukee, Kane County, Lake Country as my 1 through 4 on there.
Okay, I think honestly, a Milwaukee Lake Country series could be a
banger.
Fun. Yeah,
man.
And Kane and Cleburne could also be kind of fun. Be down for that. Give me 3 games of that.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, that would be fun. More discussion of people not wanting to go to Cleburne around playoff time is fun. I like Cleburne being good, by the way. Yeah. A quick diversion here for like 30 seconds. It's not even like a lot of times I root for a team where it's like it's good for the league when this team is good. I believe that with the Barnstormers. Something about, I think Lancaster's the core of the Atlantic League. I think them being good is a good thing. Something about Cleburne being good. I like that there is a league with 11 teams stretched through the Midwest. And there is one potentially big bad boy, some monster lurking far below that you might travel to see once or twice. They might come to your town once or twice, and they are potentially a wrecking crew, and they got a weird energy to them because that coaching staff's going to be a funny bunch, and they're just dangerous to deal with. And like, there's that, oh shit, Cleburne's coming to town vibe. I think that's cool. I think that's a good energy, and I like fully support it. Like, I really want Cleburne to be good because that's so chaotic. Just off on an island, murdering teams that like have to drag their way down there to your hot ass stadium, and you just
clubbing them to death on artificial turf in the Texas
for a week because it's a 6-game series. Just a week of it. Like, you shell your starter game 1, and he's got to sit for 5 days and think about how he's got to go again. Like, buddy, chaos. That could be really fun.
I agree with that. Hope they play Winnipeg. Make them bust. No planes. Make them bust.
I'm going to bus.
Take the bus from Cleburne to Winnipeg. Think about how you just messed up those first 2 games.
Get a little crazy with it. I'm gonna hurt that. Exactly. Yeah, let's get the worst travel schedule possible.
Oh God, the panic and heart attack that the league and ownership would have, and they're like, "Oh, this is about to get expensive."
Right.
Either we have to fly everything up there, or we got to bus it.
Before we move on,
yeah,
we're jumping into the West, I assume now.
Yes, we are going to the West. We're halfway done.
Do you have the East better than the West?
No, I do not.
Really?
Yeah.
I have like the top of the West better than the top of the East, but I think the middle of the East is like significantly better than the middle of the West.
For what it's worth, I don't really have any weak team. Like, there's no team in the West here that I have that far under 500. I think there's only one under 500 team.
See, I got 4.
See, we're going to disagree a lot.
And I also have, like, if I'm, again, it's a loose power ranking, but like my 2, 3, 4, and 6 are all in the East. So just because I like the grouping of, like, if we'll cut the top, like, I'm just saying, like, if you were to say, like, all right, 3 teams that are like killers, who do you got? Milwaukee, King County, and Lake Country, or Lincoln, Winnipeg, and Sioux City? I would take Milwaukee, King County, and Lake Country. No, this is a different discussion, but I'm always curious about balance of division like that. Anywho,
let's get off of Fargo. Let's go Fargo to start here.
Fargo, that's all right.
Honestly,
what stands out?
I kind of like Fargo. I kind of like him. I think Garrett Alexander's good. I like Alex Dubourg, but he needs to bounce back here, but I do like him. Colton Davis looked good at the end of the last year and in the postseason, so I like him. Davis Feldman, I like. Tyler Grauer, I believe in a lot. Kelvin Pilot as a Pioneer League guy, but maybe got something here. If you can get like 20 good innings out of him, good signing. And Orlando Rodriguez. Yeah.
For what it's worth. Anywho.
Yeah. Orlando Rodriguez, I also do like. Batting wise, there's a lot of the same guys. Dylan Thomas is back. Evan Alexander, I like. Dakota Phillips, I'm interested to see how he goes from Evansville to Fargo. I'm curious to see how that transition goes. Sam Dexter, Nick Novak, you know what you're getting from them. And then adding in Cespedes. I don't recall if Herrera was there last year or if this is his first year there, but I do like both of those guys as well. Overall, I think they're a pretty well-built team, playoff team, 53-win team.
Bro, I mean, this is a big one where we disagree. I think Fargo looks really good. Like, I am extremely impressed. And I like they are coming in, they're my 1. And I will put a huge caveat on that and this is going to be a sticking point throughout this conversation for the rest of the way we go. I simultaneously do not like Kansas City's roster right now, but I also know Kansas City is going to continue to add. It's just
same exact thing.
Frankly, I have in my Atlantic League projections, I've managed to be able to kind of work in that long-term trend of a team like Long Island who tends to add, Gastonia, who now has a proven record of adding over the course of the year, to the projection of sort of like almost like a general upkeep of roster game added back into the win projection. I have not necessarily figured that out with the American Association projections yet. But like, so that is going to skew a bunch of stuff because the numbers so far are saying one thing about Kansas City versus the rest of the division. My brain is saying another. So I'm balancing that a little bit here. But if we're just looking at numbers, like I do not disagree very much with it. I think Fargo is at least just today the best put together roster in the league. I think they're the best offense, and I think they have probably top 2 or 3 pitching.
I could go along with pitching. The offense, I am not necessarily in lockstep with.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
You're wrong, but okay.
Here's the thing. I think there are 2 or 3 guys that could really get that going, but I also don't think there's one particular guy in the infield, which I'm now realizing here, unless he's listed as inactive, which he is not. There is no Leo Pena, and I do not see any Kevin McGovern either, which is a real huge shift there. But
I wouldn't be surprised if McGovern pops in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like later, it feels that like how like Daryl Thompson sometimes, like they were earlier on it this year, but I think there was a year where like Daryl Thompson wasn't on the roster until like 2 days before. But it's like Daryl's gonna be, he's there, like he's, you know. So I didn't overthink that one, but you are right. It's interesting to watch.
Yeah.
So
I don't see. I think there's 3 or 4 guys here that are generally going to carry most of the water here, and there's a lot of guys that aren't going to necessarily be drawing back on this, rotation or not rotation on this lineup. But also, when you remove the big hitters away, then you're going to have a problem. Guys like, say, Cespedes and Dylan Thomas, I don't expect to last the whole year. I expect it to last 25 or so games before they're gone.
Okay. Okay, so I'll start. My thoughts start on the offensive side, I guess. I'll go with that. I have more confidence in that. I do understand, and that is another thing that is not built in very well with my American Association projections yet, yeah, I do agree we might be losing some of these guys here. I worry about Cespedes for sure. But I just think it's to go in, it is a lineup where any given day, 6, maybe 7 of those guys, I would say, are like, I'm confident they're going to give me, if not a hit or 2, good at bats throughout. Going from, when you're dealing with like Nick Novak as like your potentially like 6th or 7th guy in the lineup, I'll take that. That's a win. Damn, what's Sam Dexter's numbers looking like right now? Yeah,
They were
Sam Dexter
last year.
Yeah, and I honestly see him as one of the 2 or 3 worst bats in that lineup. So like, it's just a good depth thing. It's not anti-Sam Dexter.
The Twitterless captain of the team has a worse bat.
I'm just saying, like, that's more of an endorsement of their depth.
I know.
So that's part of it. I do think also the drop off, if they were to lose some guys, isn't tragic. While it's not ideal, it's just not. I think they are okay depth wise compared to some other teams. Pitching. Also the one thing I do like, lots of offensive or outfield flexibility. They've got what? They got like 6 solid outfielders that I could see any of them hitting like 260 or above. So not bad. Looking at the starting rotation, what I got it again. We just got to kind of grasp at straws sometimes with these really young pitching staff as far as like the experience goes, which is interesting. But Jake Dykhoff, I think he can eat some innings. He's got a bit of a track record of being able to do that, and he's been getting more innings in. While I don't love his numbers, I think he could be a guy like who in a 4 or 5 role could like chew up some innings. Tyler Grauer, Dave Feldman, Kelvin Pilot, I do have some confidence in. Plus, he's a guy who can also throw innings. I think they're not going to overly expose their bullpen early, and I think that's going to be pretty key. I think they're going to be able to get guys going deeper in games than most other pitching staffs. And then I think the bullpen looks good too. I don't know. Guys like Noah McBride and Orlando Rodriguez, I feel good about both. I don't know. There's a lot of guys that I would be confident giving the ball to. There's probably only 2 or 3 guys where I'm like, you're a low leverage guy when I really look at this pitching staff, which I think is rare at this point in the year for any ball teams, specifically American Association. I don't know. I could be off. You do have me second guessing a little bit, but what I'm seeing, the numbers I'm seeing, and I do back it up pretty fully.
Yeah, which just to swing back to, both Pena and McGovern are both in Mexico.
There you go. The cost. I knew McGovern was in Mexico. That's right. I literally just went through that because I was doing a recount on how many we were up to. But and do I remember the number? Nope. After all that. So classic.
Yep. Wait, let's just check one thing here. Make sure it's the same guy that I think it is. It would be, yeah. Apparently, Orlando Rodriguez was also in Mexico, at the very least, to start the year. Played 2 games, inning and a third, 1 hit, 1 strikeout, 1 walk, no runs.
That's a thing I don't know enough about. I feel like I saw multiple guys while I was doing this who have already gone to Mexico, played like 2 games, and come back. I'm like, what is that? And like they were 1 or 2 weren't great, but the other ones weren't bad. I'm like, oh no, okay.
This is like there's not enough here.
That I know sometimes I've heard a couple times they'll bring a guy in and then like, they were at the line for how many internationals they can bring in. And then another potential really good international falls in their lap. And they're like, well, sorry, man, here's your ticket home. Like, so I don't know. I think that's only occasionally that happens, but there's a lot I just don't understand that can be cause and effecting down there.
It's still interesting to watch out, though. I will say, I do think Fargo is one of the better teams in the division. Maybe not the best, because I know there's going to be one team that we're going to both disagree on, but that comes later. But we do agree on some level with Kansas City, which is up next. I like Rutherford. I like Swaggerty. Ross Adolph, I think, is a solid player. Liban's not bad. McClellan, I like. But yeah, overall, it's not an overly impressive roster right now, but I feel like it's foolish to do anything other than call them a low 50s wins team. Like, as it stands today, it's not that good, but they're not going to stay that same way. They got something up their sleeve.
Yes, I agree. I mean, currently, where's my numbers on them? What? God's name, Ryan. Okay, there we are. I do have them, like, literally the numbers have them sitting around 45 right now. Do I believe that's actually what it will be? No. I'm actually trying to dig into this a little bit more to get a better number on what it's more likely to end up at, but sort of like throwing my way through the process of kind of accounting for some of those things we talked about earlier. But yeah, it's weird. And okay, so this is what, year 2 of me doing indie ball. And I wasn't as locked in on the off season last year because I was just sort of taking so much on of this new sort of pursuit. Is this their MO? It feels like it's not. I feel like they're more.
No, it really isn't. Normally they come in ready, but then again, they also normally bring in more firepower. So you're bringing in the bigger names. You need to have them more day one because that's when you're going to get them. So it's odd. Like, it very well could be that this is what they're running with. This is just like that. Okay, we won a couple championships over the last couple of years. Let's go ahead and make it a rebuilding year. Maybe save a little bit of money on the roster. And go ahead and circle back for next year. But this year we take a knee.
Now, maybe. I don't feel it being likely, especially since they
have the All-Star game too, so that's not.
They have the All-Star game and they're defending crowns. Like, that's they got, I don't know. They're trying to be in the heart of the playoff matchup. They just won. You don't want to punt as you have the trophy in your, living room. So I do find it, I think it's more likely that they have something up their sleeve. You know what I mean? I'm wondering if it's Visa guys they're waiting on.
Could be that. Something could have just fallen through on them too.
True. And the, again, the good vibe, if you're a fan of the team, is they have shown numerous times that they will be aggressive in continuing to bring guys in. All right, this is what got my attention. That's right. Jeffrey Del Rosario, Juan Mejia, Jalen Ortiz, and Jonathan Sprinkle. I don't know the deal on, but those first 3 feel like Visa guys to me.
They absolutely are.
So, and I'm not sure what Jonathan Sprinkle's up to, but love the name.
He's actually Canadian. We're waiting on that.
No, you delivered that in a confident way. No, he's from Kansas, right?
I mean,
I got him from Kansas, so we're.
Are you trusting Point Streak?
But Jeffrey shouldn't need a visa, by the way. I don't think he should. But the other 2 are from the Dominican, so they're probably on the same visa application. Just a thought. Other than, that could flesh out some things a little bit. Really, that would make more sense for the pitching staff as well. Probably push them up toward the top half of the league. It's kind of hard to talk about them, though, as is, like, because we can only talk about the team we see, but we also, it's almost like we don't believe our eyes on it.
Yeah, so it's like my lying eyes syndrome here, where it's just like they've been too good and too much of like win first mentality for the last 4 years. They're not going to just start sitting out now.
Yes. On the pitching side, if we're just talking guys I like, being positive about things, Jackson McClellan, Garcia, Jackson Goddard,
Moats ain't bad.
Grant Gavin, like that's Ashton Godot could be a good piece depending on what they can get out of him. It just looks so thin offensively, and honestly, the visa conversation does not resolve that, and that's where I'm a little confused.
Yeah,
am I crazy or am I missing? I think I'm overlooking something.
I don't really think you are. I mean, you said McCaffrey?
Yeah,
Okay, and I mentioned Dalton Motes because I do like Dalton Motes,
I
but
like Dalton Motes also. Yeah,
yeah, but yeah, outside that, I don't really see too much.
Dalton Motes could drop like a sub 4 ERA, and I would not be shocked by that.
Yeah.
I just
Solid lefty guy. That's nice to have.
yes. I'm just seeing if there's anything else I'm overlooking, but not really. You know.
Yeah, no, I don't love what we have so far.
A lot of lefty bats, by the way.
It is interesting.
5, 6, 7 lefties plus a switch hitter.
More lefties than righties. That is really weird. Josh Bissonet's another guy that I kind of think could be interesting.
Right. I did jot him down. My concern with him was I'm not sure where the power is going to come from.
Fair.
He could. That's not fair. I think he could probably be a 10 home run guy, but it's just, do you want more out of that slot? That's probably it. My worry about that, but
yeah.
So weird is, I mean, where do we even land on this? You know what I mean? It's like right now I project them as 5th in the West Division. Realistically, I probably project them as 2nd.
Yeah, no, they're still a playoff team. I just put them in that like lower 50s mark.
Yeah. Right now I have them at 49, but I did run some like quick sort of smash it through the process numbers, and it probably more like a 55 or 56 win by the time they're fully cooking.
Which, just one little point. Did I see that right with that they have an Austin weirdo on this team?
Let's see.
Brian Aguilar? They do.
Yeah, let's go.
All right.
Love a guy who's been through it.
Trust me, those bus trips to Winnipeg ain't going to be that bad for him.
No, man, he's not even phased by it.
5'8", dude, too. 5'8" shortstop.
What a grinder, my guy.
Basically, Altuve.
Last year /3, he won 567, 429 for basically a travel team for Austin. Only played 6 games, but
he also joined late, though, Tarleton, for most of the year.
Also true. Yeah, that was, nope, I'm going to back this all up. This is 2022 numbers.
Yes. So he didn't play last year.
So Austin, he did have a home field. So how about that?
How about Lincoln? We go to Lincoln. Arias, Kubiak, Borkovich, Keenan, Zoss, like all those from batting perspective. Ross, Kim, Johns, Devine, Takis, Anderson. Really like those guys batting wise. Dakota Connors, I don't know why. I'm always high on him. Like,
I did
just looking at him.
By the way,
yeah,
I had Kansas City more like 45 wins to start. Whoopsies.
Okay. Yeah, no, I just have them 42 where I think they're going to end up at.
That's
52 rather, my mistake. But yeah, that's my thoughts for Lincoln. I never have them to be that much above 500. I don't know why. They just never really reward me when I'm that high on them. Something always goes wrong with them. Also, I'm seeing a lot of Ogden guys here between Kubiak.
Weird, right?
Really, yeah. McCabe, Foster, then you have Kareem Patel, who's Billings. So there's a lot of Pioneer League flavor there. Logan Williams, another guy who's not a pitcher, but he's an Ogden guy. Dakota was an Ogden guy.
Love Dan Kubiak getting over, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, we had that at home, though, so.
I know. But remember, all jokes aside, he performed really well last year.
Yeah, no, he's a really good pitcher for a large chunk of the reason they won a championship. But, yeah, I am still about 51. That being said, I think they definitely could be better. But I also do have some questions as the season goes along. Are they going to be able to keep it up? And again, a lot of the guys I listed, I like them, but I don't love them.
Right. So my concern is this. Yeah. I consider neither Adam Scott nor Jackson Lindley to be true starting pitchers, like bet on full season starting pitchers. However, I think they're maybe the best rotation options they have to start the year. They also have Abdallah Aris and Karan Patel.
I like him. Yeah, I like Aris.
Like them, but I would not be surprised to see them collectively sitting around a 5 ERA, which is now we're looking at, two of your starters and I can't find a starter. It could be Zach Keenan or something like that.
Yeah, no, it would be Zach Keenan.
Yeah, so I also could see him in the 5s ERA wise. So we're talking 3-5 ERA starters and 2 guys who are question marks.
See, I like Keenan, though.
Yeah, I just, I don't know that he's got a track record that makes me say that he's going to deliver consistently like quality starts. And like in quality starts, I mean like by definition quality starts, like 6 innings, 3 runs. I don't
also wonder how many of those you actually do get, though. Also, part of the reason why, also part of the reason for the Pioneer League flavor, look at their hitting coach.
Right. Yeah, I called it too.
Yeah, it's like, oh, Cash is here now.
Yeah. So I would be wary of that. We've talked about that in the past of bringing in. We talked about it with Tri-City last week. Talking about no, not Tri-City. Oh shoot. Was it? No. Who were we talking about last year? York. We were talking about York and how it's starting to look a little bit like Winnipeg. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's just something to be aware of. It's a natural tendency. And it's a tendency that's bitten many coaches, just showing a little bit too much affinity for their guys. It doesn't mean a lot of these guys are in trouble. We like several of them already, but it's something to be cautious about. Something to know is a risk.
Yeah, I would also say with Keenan too. Keep in mind, he started in this league at 23, which I'm not sure how many guys immediately go from college right to here. And year 1, 15 starts, 5.6 ERA. Dropped that to under 5, granted, just barely. But in 17 starts in 21 games, and with about 35 more innings pitched. So he's getting better. I wouldn't be stunned to see him around a 4.5.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. That's definitely within the realm.
Yeah,
I think
home runs are not great.
No, and that's where if you're giving up runs in bunches, that's where we're going to start to have problems.
28 walks doesn't bother me so much. The 14 hit batters seems like a lot.
It's up there, that's for sure. I mean, that's not a deal breaker for me either. I mean,
yeah, protect your plate.
Yeah, I mean, as my concern is that I think some of those are, I want to see a guy with those types of numbers. A lot of the time, it's guys who work inside so they can free up the outside or just stay in on the hands, keep guys, in a bad spot, and sometimes gets away and hit them. My concern is I think there's outings where he just doesn't have that. Like he doesn't have that command on the inside and he has to go outside, and that's when he starts getting hit. That's just observational. I've only watched a couple like full outings from him over time, probably 2 or 3, but that's what stuck with me. And that's what stuck with me as well when I was saying I'm a little hesitant to say he's above a 5 ERA. I have him probably like a 5.2-ish ERA this year, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him go mid-4s. I just don't. I worry when it's like, hey, like if we don't have Zach Keenan delivering every 5th day, we're really up against it and don't really have 5 starters. I think that's concerning. When their starting rotation is an LS1 with Zach, a rookie, and then you're going down to another an LS2 and LS3. It's not bad. I forget Patel isn't as young as I think of him as, but that's it. That's a question mark there. I think they're probably a middle of the pack pitching staff on the whole. The bullpen's got some better depth, less holes in it, I guess is the way to say it. I do worry about some of those Ogden guys, but we just have to show some faith in that. Dan Kubiak's a dog, so I believe in him. Offensively, anything?
Nothing more than what I've already said. I think there are some guys, Anderson being the main one probably. Divine, I think, is interesting. I think Gavin Johns could be a nice piece. I think Roskamp could be a nice piece. Takis will be a quality everyday player. And I think Connors, from his limited time in Winnipeg, I want to believe in him more. I'm not totally sold, but maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of it in like a lineup format. You know what I mean? It's sometimes hard. Like, look at a list of names. You're like, oh, yeah, these guys hit. And then you kind of try to piece them together. You're like, oh, there's some gaps. So the way I see it, I mean, Zane Zerbrug, Luke Roskam, and Gary Mattis is like a legitimate core lineup that I could actually get excited about. Nick Anderson and Aaron Takix, I think, are both good and really add something. Beyond that, there is a bit of a slide. Drew Devine could put up some numbers, but Drew Devine could also kind of fall a little more flat, which worries me. And I guess what worries me with Drew Devine is I'm not convinced that if he isn't hitting 275 or above, I worry that he's also not really going to contribute much power while he's, having that kind of year. And then you're going to almost like double down on the missed value from him. That's just a weird thing with the way I just see his profile. And then after that, though, we're looking, and I'll name some names on this one. Once you get past like Drew Devine, like Gavin Johns, you're looking at a group that's like Matt Pita, Max Hewitt, Logan Williams, Dakota Connors, making sure guys are still there. Jack Dragum, great name. Marshall Autry, he's still there, but they have 4 catchers right now, so probably one might go.
Yeah, no.
And then Alex Baeza, is he still there? Baeza's still there. So those are 5 guys that I just see as like below league average. 5 or 6 guys that are going to probably 5 that'll be in the lineup every night, and that's where I start to go. Oh, maybe 4 if I'm really working this out in my head. But that's where I start to go. Oh, like that's. Those are if you can't start to construct that in a creative way, like that's an inning worth of outs most times through, and you just can't give that many away. That's my concern on the lineup. I do think, again, they're a middle of the pack lineup as well. There's a reason why there's some teams that are middle of the pack lineup wise because everybody's just kind of good, whatever. And there's ones where it's like you got a bunch of really good dudes and a bunch of guys who I'm surprised are in American Association lineups right now.
Fair enough.
And they're just in the middle now. they sort of combine to make that.
I suppose, but I just here's the thing. I'm higher on some of those middle tier guys than you are. That's the real difference.
Do you mean like more like Drew Devine, or do you mean like the guys?
Drew Devine and mainly Devine and Connors.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know why with Connors. Devine, I think he's consistent enough.
I like that he can run a bit. I worry about his power for sure. Like I worry that he needs a lot of hits to make an impact. That's where I started to worry about Dakota Connors. But I'm trying to think through Lincoln's field. I don't know. It's kind of a weird one. I don't know.
But a lot of short walls, if I'm not mistaken.
But we're fine. We'll go ahead.
Yeah. The Sioux are up next. Sioux City first, and then we'll go to Sioux Falls. But Sioux City.
Lincoln, real quick. I got them sitting around like 51 wins, probably second or third in the division. But obviously, there's the caveat of Kansas City is chaos, and they could come in at any moment. Yeah.
As far as Steve Montgomery's team and the Explorers team, that quite frankly, about 6 months ago, we weren't sold. We're going to still be here. But hey, that goes. I like a lot of their bullpen guys, like a Boschers, a Gherkin, Weatherby. I like those guys. Sheiks, I think it's more a starter, if I'm not mistaken. And Denson Hall, I do like both of them. I like Lingo and I like Zim. Nagowski is, he's a solid piece here. Chase Harris, I love in the outfield as a bat, give or take, but I love him as a fielder. Jimenez, not bad. Otta, I'm curious about, and same thing with Shumpert. That's really the takeaways. I don't really know where to drag this team to. I kind of put them in the same 50 win plateau because I'm kind of not bad, but I also don't love them either.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it's a coincidence. We talked about the Atlantic League, and when I talked to Atlantic League, there was kind of a gap of there was high end, there's higher win totals and a big chunk, and then a bunch of lower ones, and then Lexington. Frontier League was a little more all over the board. I'm not surprised that the American Association does project, and this is the second year in a row I've had it where it projects very middle of the pack heavy, and I think that's a symptom of 8 of 12 teams making the playoffs. So it makes sense that so many of them kind of head toward the middle because they know get them in and get some action going. As far as starters go, I like the rotation a lot. I got it probably as Matt Ball, John Sheeks, Jared Weatherby, potentially. Weatherby has some potential for starting. I could also see it being a guy like Brawny Munoz, maybe. And then I got Joey Murray and Denson Hall as the likely 4-5s because I don't necessarily see clear-cut starters beyond that. But they would kind of project as a mid-4s ERA staff, as a staff. That's not bad. You take that. No, you would take that for sure.
Yeah.
I do have them in top half of the league pitching wise. Now, more of the positives, I guess, real quick. That leaves you Brandon Brasher, Bronny Munoz, Rain Supple, Antonio Valdez. Honestly, even Evan Johnson I like. So that's a lot of options to go to out of the pen, a lot of potential starting options. Denson Hall's a guy too, where he's a good pen option. If you then, bring in a fourth or fifth starter and you want to move him to the pen, you can do that. So I like the way the pitching staff is constructed. The hitting side, a little question. I got them as one of the lower. I got them as like my 11th offense to start here. Again, preliminary ranking. I'm still giving it some looks, but for me, it's right now. There's a weird lack of depth going on. They only got 9 guys. I see rostered. I don't know if you're seeing anything different, but I'm seeing 9.
I got 9.
Bunch of inactive. Like they got
a lot of visas.
Yeah, but I think are they all pitchers?
No, Jimenez is a catcher.
Yeah, you're right. They got two bats in there at least. So, but yeah, my concern on the whole is I really just only see about one guy that I'm like, that is a good above league average bat for sure. And that would be Scott Oda. Other than that, I think we're living in some question marks, and there's a lot of guys that could go a few different directions on it. Nick Shumpert himself, like I would love to bet on harder, but also he's like a 250 hitter if we really look at it, and you love talking batting average. So I just don't really know how that's all going to fit together unless they have something up their sleeve right now.
I like Lingo. I think Lingo was brought down a lot by being in Gary for a while. Delvin Zim had a solid year from my recollection, and Nagowski I think can be. I mean, he proved it before, going from being here to being in the with the Cardinals for a while there. Plus Zim, if you remember, he turned it on towards in the postseason a little bit in his 5 games. So I think he can kind of carry it over again. Overall, I do kind of see what you're coming at from. I don't love the batting. I don't love the depth. And I hate when you rely this much on guys that are probably Visa guys. That's a large bet you're making. So, yeah, I would agree with that. I put him at around 50, 51 for the win total. But again, I'm flexible on that one. They don't overly impress me in a lot of areas.
Yeah, my Visa theory also on the whole is I like to avoid waiting on Visa guys. Well, one, get your damn paperwork done, but it's different things. Sometimes you can't help it. But what my concern is, there's always talk about what if the Visa doesn't come through or comes through late or whatever. The big one that I always think is an issue is the number of teams who are just holding serve, essentially. That's not what that phrase means. Just holding on status quo with a subpar team while waiting on their Visa guys to come through. And then a lot of times the Visa guys come through and they don't live up. And now you just wasted a month of season, playing the waiting game for something that didn't solve your problems. So that's something that's going to be a risk for sure. We kind of went through it here. Angel Nesbitt, man, that'd be an interesting one if you can get that. That's an ongoing saga, but I guess on the whole, I like the pitching staff. I'm just really worried about the offense, and I don't honestly see how the Visa guys are a solution to that right now. So I'm wondering if they have something else up their sleeve.
Interested to see how that plays out. Going to the other Sioux, the penultimate team, second to last at me. Sioux Falls Canaries finally made the playoffs again. Is it bad that, I almost think they said, screw pitching, let's go for batting, because the birdcage isn't exactly, great for pitchers?
I got that read. I kind of got that vibe as well.
Because Shamoy Christopher is not bad. I want to see what Josh Rewalt can do in the American Association. Barth isn't bad. Achenbach isn't bad. Mike Hart isn't bad. White Ulrich I deeply like. Same thing with Clannon. And Jabari Henry's always, it's always great. They returned their whole outfield, actually, it looks like. And they returned a lot of guys, actually, come to think of it now. Right. There's only 3 new batters, right?
It's like one of the most complete rosters from year to year. It's kind of wild, actually.
Yeah, they got
6, 7.
6 new
I got you in the count already. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 returners from last year.
Yeah, probably been easier to just count the guys that weren't.
Well, I was already in it.
All right. Well, either way, yeah, they returned a lot of the same roster. I put them at slightly worse than last year. They had 52 wins last year. I have them at about 48, 49. I think it's just more because I like the teams around them better. There's nothing wrong with them, but it comes to a certain point where you need some pitching. Like, I get your home ballpark isn't good for it, but there comes a point where you need it. And I don't really see it here. Like Zimmerman, yeah. Maybe Veen and Hasty and Stover. That's about all I see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing here. Like, you can bring I kind of have the same concern. I mean, I've got them with a mid-tier offense, honestly. I still think there's some pretty big holes in the offense. But I get it. They're going power. That seems to be a vibe. But like, you can bring 9 big dogs to the yard every day. Problem is, if your pitching isn't up to par, the other team can bring 5 and beat you pretty consistently. I think that's what Sioux Falls tends to run into. I do think this is definitely a flawed roster construction. I did not have them as favorable as you do. I have them closer to like the 43 win total right now. I just think Fargo's gotten better. I think Lincoln's good. I think Kansas City is going to be Kansas City. I think, Sioux Falls was a fringe playoff team that I think has taken a step backwards while other teams around them have taken a step forward. And I think that's a very precarious spot. Like, that's not we got a little worse, other teams got a little better. That's going to affect us by 1 or 2 games. I think it's going to affect you by several. So that is my. I like Sioux Falls a lot, and it's unfortunate because I want them to do well. I think that's a good energy to have, but I don't see an avenue the way this is currently constructed. They really only have 2 pitchers that I'd be really confident giving the ball to day in, day out right now, and that's probably Hasty and Dunaway. And that's not how you build a roster, my guys. Like,
Zimmerman can give you quality innings, though, but yeah, he shouldn't be a main guy.
Okay, yeah, no, you're right. It's just I also he also can have no, I'm not going to talk out there on that one. I feel like he's vulnerable to a blow up, but I don't actually.
That's fair.
Walters, by the way, they are solid options. I worry about them keeping the ball in the yard, though.
That's fair. I mean, there's a reason why he bounces.
There's a way to construct a pitching staff for what they're doing. I'm going to sit here like I'm the damn expert on things, but like, I do look at a lot of rosters, and like, I look at a lot of historical rosters. So like, I've seen kind of what can work here, and honestly, what worked with it sticks out as 2021 Lexington strategy kind of was the big offense, but like we just said, okay, so you have 9 guys who are really banging, but the other team can bring in 5 guys who can swing it, and that can beat you because your pitching can't hang. I think the way probably to handle that, especially if you're in a situation where you can't get top level guys in, and that's not what you're sort of setting aside your budget, is to get guys who have a history of, like, this is a weird sort to do through any data you use, but I look for guys who give up 0 or 1 runs, and how many, like, what percent of innings to give up basically 2 or less runs, and who is okay. Like, maybe their ERA is around 4 or 5, but that's because they're giving up like 1 run an inning for like 3 of maybe this 5 innings they'd work. And maybe it's a reliever who's are you excited about a reliever with a 4+ ERA? No. But how often is he giving up more than 1 run less than 10% of the time he goes out there? There's something crazy like that. That's something to look at, because that is something your offense can consistently just dismiss. Oh, you have a 1 run. That's fine. We hang touchdowns. That's fine. It's when a guy, you have a good start to the game. You're up 5-2 in the 6th, and then your starter implodes, gives up 2. Your reliever comes in, he makes it worse, gives up 3, and all of a sudden your offense is like, dude, like, we're having a day and now we're losing. Like, that's what gets you, and I think that's what they're going to be particularly vulnerable to right now.
I would agree with that.
Don't get me started on roster construction. Just where's Out of the Park baseball? Give it to me.
Well, we're not going to be out of the park, but we'll be out of the country for the last team. That's Winnipeg. Logan Watkins going over there. First year for him.
Mm-hmm.
I actually really like Winnipeg.
I do too. And I'm excited to see what Logan Watkins is doing up there. I think it's going to be an interesting mix.
Yeah, I like Barassa. I like Eastman. I like Courtney. I like Voltovic. I like Seabrook. I love Trask Strobel as a pitcher. There's some Ryder Yakel's another dude I'm kind of 50-50 on. I'm really interested on Dason Cruz's year 2. Max Murphy's normally consistent power bat, so that's always a positive there. Miles Symington is a guy that I think could really have a pop-off here. Evan Arroyo's on the injured list at the moment, but I do think when he comes back, he can be one of the best second basemen in the league. I've always been high on him. And then Kevin Garcia is an interesting guy. If I'm not mistaken, he just got released from Long Island and wound up here, but still, interesting guy.
Yeah.
So I overall like the roster construction here. Is it overly flashy? No. Is it a consistently good team? Yes. And I think that means something. I'm about 54 wins.
I am sitting at about 52.
Okay.
I'm about third in the division probably, but it's funny with what we just talked about with the pitching construction. I've got the projections, I have them with 0 guys going below 4 ERA throughout the whole pitching staff.
Really?
But I also have 0 guys going like consistently used guys, like a couple fringy guys, sure, but like really nobody going above like a 5.2. Like, and that's a lot of not giving up crooked numbers. Like, and I think that is actually a funny example of it. We didn't plan it that way, but a possible fit
just
for
keep
that.
On swimming.
It really is that. I mean, if you look at it, I mean, you got guys, Joey Matalovich, Landon Barassa, Nick Trugerlick, Iverson. I'm going to ruin that every time. They're all guys who I'm confident can throw 100 innings, which is going to really chip away at the number of innings you got to cover. That doesn't even start to touch on some of the relievers like Strobel, Colton Eastman, depending on how they use them, can also eat some innings, looks like. So that is something I like. It should sort of spread the work, not overexpose anybody. I think that is a good staff. Young staff, by the way, but also not like only a couple LS1s in there. They're really middle ground. So I think that's a good established crew of guys with pro experience and Winnipeg experience.
Trugerlick.
Yeah.
He is the Gold Ice and press releases, and they put the pronunciations in them.
There, okay.
Appreciate that one, boys.
Thank you. Now on the offensive side, I think there's a chance this offense could be a bit of a wrecking crew. I think, they got to hold together. You can't be losing guys left and right. And if they put that together, I'm looking at a lineup that looks something like, let me see, I got it worked out.
While you're working out, I will say, I don't think there's too many guys that are going to get picked up, though. I think a lot of them
I agree with you.
In that grouping of like, they're great for the level they're at, but they're not going to get picked up. I think a guy like maybe a Dason Crows could be, the kind of guy get picked up just because he's a bit younger, about 24, 25. So he's the guy that people may take a chance on, but everybody else is like 27 or older. They're not probably going to get that shot. Maybe Mexico, but like they'll be together for most of the year, I think.
No, I'm with you. I feel you. And we're looking at normal batting where it looks like it's going to have Adam Hall, Max Murphy, Edwin Arroyo, Dason Cruz, Miles Symington, Gio Brusa. Like, you can keep going. Like, Keyshawn Lynch is still really, he's like an 800 OPS guy. Yeah, Ryan Holgate, and then you're at Kevin Garcia. And I really like the Kevin Garcia, Rob Emery. Yeah. I look, you can only see so much from a feed. It looks like they both catch good games, which I
another 5-9
catcher bias. I like that. So I just think it's a really good looking team. I think they could be also quite a headache to deal with in the playoffs. So that's a funny thing to keep watching. But that if that is like the normal lineup they go with, that should post an 800 or above OPS, that'll work, frankly. So
I just realized I have a guy that was born on Christmas Day here in Jack McMurphy or McMurray. That alone, that alone gives them an extra 2 wins.
Right.
Christmas magic, dude.
I think that Winnipeg offense could drift up to like third or fourth best, depending on how things play out here.
Yeah, I honestly really like
they don't start the year, but watch as other teams shift, and if they stick together, like we think they might.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. So that's all the teams. Let's just wrap it up with a finals prediction because it's gone on way too long.
Right.
2 final teams.
Yeah, I'll go. I think Fargo makes it.
Okay.
I think Cleburne gets it, and I think Fargo wins again.
See, I have Cleburne over Winnipeg.
Interesting.
I think Cleburne is probably the most complete team in the East. And I think they're going to hold it together. And I also trust Pete's ability to keep filling in gaps. And I love the staff. I think it's really great. And I think that there is a home field advantage with Cleburne.
Yeah, you're right.
Winnipeg, I think, lesser extent, has that same kind of home field thing. That being said, I just really like them. I just think they're a really solid team. I will throw the caveat in. Kansas City could do something.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, that could really throw a wrench in that.
Yeah, assuming there's no like wild thing that happens with KC. I mean, yeah, it probably would be Fargo in that Western final.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. I just feel a little bit off on Fargo this year.
Last year was shocking. Last year really threw off the confidence. Because, like, think about going into last year, I feel like we could feel pretty consistently good about Fargo. And then, like, there was so many what the hell is happening up there moments and, like, a lack of really substantial fixes put in place that it, like, you know, it shakes confidence of if this team starts out, like, 3-7. Like, I don't think I look at them and go, oh, they'll fix that. Like where the way we look at Long Island right now, where we're like, they'll probably still get together. I will be like, oh, Fargo's cooked.
Yeah, like that's the thing. It's like their division. You look around them, and it's easy to fall behind. Like they'll make the playoffs. It's hard to miss it. But realistically, if you say, okay, Winnipeg's going to be up there, Fargo has a bad streak in there. If you assume Kansas City will be up there, all of a sudden you just lost a huge advantage by being that third team.
Right. I agree.
So that's kind of where
I'll go Cleburne over Milwaukee in the East. I got Fargo over Winnipeg in the West, and I got Fargo over Cleburne.
Okay.
There you go.
All right.
There you go.
That's all. That's all for that preview. We have a week off of previews next week. We're going to wait to do the Pioneer League because the Pioneer League one is extremely difficult to do because it's a lot of
everyone's a deep dive, dude. Yeah.
It's big. Who the hell are these people? Energy. So we need a roster for that. I need a roster. I'm not going to try to piecemeal this together with guys from the MLB Draft League, some random no-name league, and like colleges. We're not doing this.
Right.
So,
oh my God.
Pure baseball talk week next week, which is nice because we'll have 3 leagues in motion.
Yeah, man. Plenty of actual on-field action to talk about. I'm excited.
Yeah. So, you want to hit your plugs and then we can get out of here and then we'll be all set.
Yeah. So, Indie Ball Nation on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. I usually posting score graphics every morning. Usually putting up. The current vibe. Monday, we're doing weekend recaps and like a longer look at kind of the whole week, really top performers, things like that. And then Friday, we'll just sort of discuss the series that have happened and keep it moving with some other content sort of split in between. So keep an eye on that.
Yeah. Indie Ball Pod, Twitter, Indie Ball Report, everywhere else. Follow the show wherever you can. Like, subscribe, that whole deal. Yeah. I'm going to hopefully try to get some more content out sooner than later. But it's just been a bit of a hectic period. So hopefully that'll settle down over the next week or so. And I can actually spend like a weekend editing stuff I need to edit and filming stuff I need to film. So, yeah. I need a good weekend. That's just empty.
I need some sleep. So on that note, my man.
Yeah.
Do it. Sign this thing off.
Yeah. Until next time, don't forget to play ball.